Okay. Rose, can we hit the records on? All right, good evening, everybody. It is Thursday, November 6th at 6:31 p.m. This is the calendar and business meeting for Citywide Council on Special Education. Good evening. Can we have interpretation please introduce themselves and let everyone know about your service? Spanish, could you start, please?
Hola, hola, muy buenas tardes, damas y caballeros. Les ofrecemos en esta reunión un servicio de interpretación simultánea del inglés al español. Si desean escuchar en español, tendrán que llamar por teléfono marcando el 347-966-4114 e ingresar a continuación el siguiente código de conferencia: 412-204-016, símbolo numeral. Repito, para escuchar la interpretación en español, llamen por teléfono al 347-966-4114 e ingresen el código de conferencia 412-204-016, símbolo numeral. Al llamar, por favor, silencien los micrófonos de todos sus dispositivos para evitar ruidos de fondo o ecos. Muchas gracias. End of announcement for Spanish.
Thank you very much. And Mandarin, please, can you introduce your service?
Good afternoon, everyone. 各位家长晚上好。如果有需要国语翻译的，请打专线电话37-966-4114，我们的密码是491-361-899-井。在输入密码后，记得按井字。我会在聊天时再一次留下我们的电话号码以及密码 ID， 以供大家查阅。谢谢。Thank you. The Mandarin is done.
Thank you very much. And for interpretation, if you can please put the information about your service, the dial-in number into the chat, that would be greatly appreciated. Thank you. Rose, can we please do roll call?
Francesca is excused. Sanai is running late. Joan Cummings is not here yet either. Dr. Melissa.
She's running late. She'll be here around 7.
Heather Daly.
Here.
Mark Gonzalez.
Present.
Maggie Sanchez.
Present.
Susie Wong. Irene is not here yet. And Ron.
Here.
Okay, we are not at quorum at this time, but we will continue with the agenda. So we are honored tonight to have the Office of Enrollment here and the Office of Special Education. So thank you both groups for coming. Really appreciate it. I'm going to pass it over to Johanna now. Thank you.
As always, I'm so loud today. As always, thank you so much to the CCSE for having us tonight. We are honored to have the Office of Student Enrollment with us tonight in person. So we're so excited to have us. I am Johanna Rodriguez. I work for the Special Education Office here at Central. I am Director of Family Support. I am going to share my screen very quickly so you can see who is here with us in person tonight. We are going to have a lot of information here tonight. The CCSE did share with us in advance some questions, and so we're going to go through those. But first, let me share my screen so you can know who is here with us tonight, and I will pass it over to our lovely Office of Student Enrollment so they can introduce themselves, and we'll get started. I'm going to pass it over to our Chief of Enrollment.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Travonda Kelly. I'm the Chief Enrollment Officer for Student Enrollment. We're so happy to be here. I'm here with my colleagues who will introduce themselves, and we're just happy to answer questions and really have this discussion. So thanks for having us.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Anthony Harrison. I am the Senior Director for Strategic Initiatives, Special Populations within the Office of Student Enrollment, and I'm greatly happy to be here. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Ahmad Shalay. I'm the Director of Middle School Admissions at the Office of Student Enrollment, and thank you for having me here today.
Hello, my name is Christian Barnes. I'm the Senior Enrollment Specialist on Specialized High School Admissions on the High School Admissions team. Thank you so much for having me.
Again, thank you for coming. Really appreciate this opportunity to have a nice discussion with you about the enrollment process for both middle school and high school. So we are right in the midst of the season, obviously, and it's a busy time for you all, but really appreciate you coming to see us and talk to us.
So I don't know if our Office of Enrollment wants to share some positive things that you want to share with the council about our students with disabilities, or you want to start off with our questions?
Yeah, so let me jump in. So the onus of why we wanted to do this, because it's a daunting task, obviously. I mean, you've got 400 plus high schools, you've got hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of middle schools. And for a parent with a general ed student, it's a challenge to sift through all those schools. With a student with disabilities, with the wide range of disabilities that exist and a wide range of services, it becomes even more challenging. And there's been a lot of really positive changes to the enrollment system over the years. I mean, having gone through the high school process 3 years ago to the high school process, I'm going through it my younger one now. It's been night and day difference. That being said, I'm still struggling. I think I have some decent knowledge on what's going on, but I'm struggling. I'm only going to be able to get to like 15, 16 schools for tours. I'll have gone to, after next week's 3 different fairs, I'll call them borough fairs. So I've been able to get to some stuff, but it's a daunting task. And, I appreciate, when you put the little, I'll call it the cell phone gauge that helps us kind of, you have any chance to get in that, or do you have a really strong chance to get in? I think that's a huge upgrade. And then I'll say the detail within that, where you can go, you've got 20 students that were in your group and 2 of them got in, or you had 150 students and they all got in. Those are very big changes that have happened recently, or at least since the last time my son, and those are huge. And yet I still go, there's still more I'm looking for. And that's really kind of, and we have another parent of a high schooler, and we have another middle school, or rising middle schooler going through the process. And we've heard, time and time again about the challenges. I was at a D75 meeting with our new interim superintendent 2 weeks ago, and we had a D75 parent going, my child's going to be in high school. My kid's been in D75 their entire school career, and now we're being asked to go through the normal process. What do I do? I don't know what to do. I don't know how to look for a school with these 400 plus schools. I don't know where to start. I don't know what to look for. I don't have any recommended schools in the system. And I'm lost. And the school's trying to assist where they're at, and that's great. But we need more of a systematic that can help guide a family. This is one that's got a self-contained historically, or whatever it is. I think that's one of the challenges that kind of brought us asking you to come to go, this is where we need. And by the way, my son and I went through the 2 high school student with disability programs you had, the one in July, the one in October, I believe it was. Those are really helpful. Appreciate them. That just so you understand kind of where I was and other council members have been with feedback. So I just want to put that out there before we get going. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, thank you so much for sharing that. It's encouraging to hear that things are better over time over the last few years. And we've made improvements based on hearing feedback from families, and we will continue to do that. It's sessions like this where we want to hear, what are the things that are still tripping you up when you're in this process? We understand that it's challenging. Applying for, over 400 schools is a daunting task, I think, for anyone. And, you know, in terms of the system itself, we try to make sure that we're using the system and being upfront with all of the information that you need to have. We know it's still a lot of information, but exactly all of the steps, we have videos and all of those things. And, you know, what I would say is I don't know if we'll ever make it completely easy to do this because of the fact that there are so many schools and so many factors to consider. But at the same time, I do believe that as we continue to have these conversations and hear feedback, we'll continue to take them into consideration. So thank you for sharing that too.
Hi, so I also want to acknowledge that is a very important question. We do recognize that it can be daunting for many families who are, especially coming out of District 75. The middle school or the high school admissions process can be new and it can definitely be overwhelming to them. So what we have committed to do is launch an outreach initiative to many families who are in District 75 and let them know, hey, listen, we are sending you information regarding both middle school and high school admissions processes. We are, setting up efforts and initiatives to where, hey, you can meet with an enrollment counselor, or you can contact our middle school or high school admissions team for more personalized support in an effort to let them know what their options are. Also, in an effort for them to be aware, hey, there are options for your child specifically. So those are things that we've launched. We are also looking at integrating District 75 into my schools. And that is an effort that we're continuing over time. So that way it is reflective and everything can live under one hub. So those are things that we look forward to keeping you all posted on. In addition to maybe setting up some focus groups to hear more about your feedback in general and what families with IEPs are, students with IEPs are facing, to where we can update our process. Andy?
Thank you so much, Anthony. And I just wanted to add on for District 75, hugely supportive relationship with the Office of School Enrollment and really looking to meet directly with our counselors in District 75 schools. That role is so pivotal in terms of really preparing families and having a great sense of what the students' goals are and what supports that they need. And so that's something that we'll be collaborating on also, so that those counselors in schools have the same information and can give feedback. And that's the type of two-way communication that I think will support more choices and options for students in District 75 at these key transitional grades.
I appreciate that. That's encouraging. I mean, it's a daunting task, but I appreciate the forward movement we've seen in enrollment. It is, I'll say, giant steps. In just the last 3 years, those steps are tremendous and truly appreciated. So thank you. So we have a whole bunch of questions that we had posted to you. We can go through them if that would work. So the first one was on the D75. So, the second one, I kind of touched on it with the high school. There are the info sessions that happened specifically for students with disabilities in July and in October. The one thing we don't have, or I haven't seen, is a middle school enrollment sessions targeted towards students with disabilities. I'd love to see that. Our community would certainly love to see it. I think the high school one's very helpful, and it's something I think would be beneficial for the community.
Yes, absolutely. We agree the need for this across all transition points. So moving forward, you will see these info sessions for students with disabilities and their families to learn more about the process. So you will see that moving forward.
I appreciate that. Thank you. I mean, I visited both of them and learned new stuff both times. And that was very nice to see. And there was a lot of really good questions that were asked by the community at large. And with Office of Special Education and enrollment both in that meeting, it was good to get appropriate and solid answers. So thank you and appreciate that. I'm going to jump out of order and I apologize, but I think, one of the things I noticed was there's some schools that when you look at the DOE reviews that come out, surveys that come out about schools and how they perform with students with disabilities and in providing services. Those are schools that typically have a info session when they do for their info sessions for the community in the, you know, September, October, November timeframe, where they have one that's targeted towards students with disabilities. You tend, at least in my look of schools that I'm looking at, maybe it's a small sample size and that's part of the problem. Those that don't score quite as well seem not to have one that's targeted towards students with disabilities. I think that's something we need to look at a system level is how do we get info sessions for all schools for students with disabilities or MLLs or whatever the targeted group we want to have. But I think there needs to be a little more targeting with these info sessions. And then with the info sessions, it is still the hunt to find out when the info sessions are happening, right? Some are on my school, some of them you join or you say you want to do it through my schools. Other ones are on the website. Other ones are ones I find on a WhatsApp group or a Facebook group or someone who knows someone who found out about this thing because it's not listed on the website, but there's a Google form out there you sign up for, right? It's the hidden info sessions you never know about unless you know someone. And we've got to get away from that. We've got to have it centralized on my schools. That is a powerful website, and it's got to be the only spot where you can have an info session. If it's not listed on my schools, it shouldn't be allowed to happen at DOE. And we've got to put the hammer down from this building. Because if I wasn't on these WhatsApp groups and these Facebook groups and the other groups, I wouldn't know about half the info sessions that have happened because they're not listed on the my school site. And that's a problem. I mean, we need equity, and it doesn't exist. Heather, jump in, please.
So the other suggestion I would make too is often schools have these really great open houses that are for just general open house. And parents are usually presented with a slide deck about all the wonderful things and programs our school offers. And disability and IEP students are given like one slide. Um, and it doesn't really have much information. And I, as a parent, want to ask questions about how that school is going to serve my child. And there's not opportunity to do that in a general open house. I understand it's a lot of work to have everyone in the school. It doesn't even have to be in the school. It could be a virtual open house that happens after their general open house. But parents who have students with IEPs need a place where they can log in and ask specific questions. Like, do you have ICT for your CTE program? How many OT staff do you have on site? How many this, how many, they have specific questions that are never answered in a big general open house because there's no opportunity or parents don't feel empowered to ask those questions because they're not going to get an answer when that school is addressing like 400 parents at an open house. So I know it's been suggested in the past and for a lot of whatever reasons, no, they just have the general open house, but it really, especially if it's a school that serves a high percentage of students with IEPs, they really need to have a specific IEP parent open house.
Thank you, Heather. And I think that goes right into the next question, which is about data. And I talked about the opening. You know, when we talk about when you click on the cell phone, or cell phone bar thing, I don't know what the official term in DOE land is, but I'll call it the cell phone bar, right? And it shows you 2 bars, right? We'll say, or 1 bar, and it says in that group, 10 of 50 people got in. How do we find out what details within that 10 of 50? Was it based on lotto? Was it, or lotto number, whatever you want to call it? How do I know if I'm looking at my kid and going, it's 10 of 50? Is that a good, I mean, I know it's not good odds because he got a 1 bar, but if he had a great lotto or he had a terrible lotto, is he got a shot because of that? Or is it because of something else within that grouping? What is the causation that's causing it? There's only 10 of 50. And I think that's a step that would be beneficial for general ed students with disabilities, any grouping, just to have a little more granular about what's causing that discussion point of 1 bar versus 3 within that group.
Yeah, so I'll take this one. I think on the macro level, it accounts for everything that you brought up. It accounts for the priority group that you're in. It accounts for the seat group, whether you're GE or SWD for that program. The reason why they offer likelihood that you're referring to cell phone graph, however it's colloquially used, is only available when you're logged into MySchools and connected to your student is because it takes into account all of that information. So it accounts for the random number, for the number of students who have normally applied to that program, right, taking past year's data, and then based on the random numbers of other students who are likely to apply to that program right now. I think one of the things that we see is that sometimes for students, they may see this change slightly if they, for instance, did not have grades and then have grades. So if your information changes and it affects it differently, the bars will change. And that's really based on the school that you're looking at in that moment for students.
Appreciate that. Thank you. I mean, that's helpful. Because yeah, I have noticed a couple of schools did change from, 1 to 2 or 2 to 1 type of thing during that. And it was interesting to see, and it's good to hear. Again, when we talk about the 400 high schools and the gazillions of middle schools, one of the challenges is the dauntingness of it. How do we get recommended schools from that, right? I mean, at some point we've got to be able to say, check more boxes, right? Because you got all the check boxes like for sports, and you've got all the check boxes for different academic programs. How do we use that data to say, these are the recommended schools. These are, call it your 3-bar, recommended 3-bar schools, recommended 2-bar schools, recommended 1-bar schools, so you have a diversity, but we can narrow that down a lot more, because even when I put in everything that applies, I'm still getting way too many schools to filter. And honestly, I'm end up going to NYC SIFT to help with the recommendations because it's easier, honestly. And it'll tell me which schools are good with students with disabilities because it looks at the data that's already out on other parts of the DOE website to go, these are the good schools for students with disabilities, where I have my random number, where I have my EdOp group and my overall group. And based on all that, these are the schools it recommends based on whatever things, if I want X number of miles away or whatever boroughs. We've got to pull in recommended stuff to help our families get a little tighter, because it's too hard otherwise. And the filters are still way too broad. And we just need to find a way to make it a little bit easier. And look, it's not the end all absolute, and the parent doesn't have to go, or guardian doesn't have to go off the recommended, but we should have a thing. Hey, recommend me some schools based on what I'm flagging. That would be helpful.
That's good feedback for us to have. We did add more and more filters, but any other way that we can help you all narrow down schools, I think that would be important. I'm not sure if this is something that you want to share, so.
So again, first on the macro level, you may be a little bit psychic. Discussing filters and developing functionality on being able to use the filters based on which schools are showing high bars versus low bars versus medium bars is feedback that we have heard and we're discussing with our MySchools team. I think outside of that, we also want to make sure that offer likelihood is not limiting where families apply. For instance, if I have a low bar chance of getting into a school, if 70,000 students apply, 1 in 100 are still set to get in. And we don't want a family to see that and go, I have no chance, so I'm never going to apply to that school because they could get in. So I'll bring that up. But I think, as Shavonda brought up, we are looking for ways to help filter it down without making families think that they're limited, especially for students with IEP and other services. They have at earlier points felt like they were told that they could not apply to certain schools, and we want to work away from that. On the other hand, we also see sometimes schools reach out to us and they want to make sure that their schools are being shown to families within MySchools, and they worry that if they're getting filtered out by a sort of above broad that we're implementing, that would hurt them. So we are looking at that functionality in the future based on offer chances. And I think we always walk the line between how do we help families find what they're looking for without telling them that we're not recommending something.
And I think that's where you have to say, hey, recommend me some schools, right? You have it as it is, because as it is you've got the catalog of the 400 plus high schools and the gazillion middle schools, right? But if someone wants help, have a button they hit. right? I mean, I think that would be kind of like the ideal thing. It's there if you want it, but we're not going to mandate you get an auto filter. You filter how you want as opposed to you guys telling, right? Because that's not what you want to do. You want to, we've got a great portfolio of programs you choose, but if you need a little guidance, here it is. And I also think something else, and I think about, so we're just talking, we need to list, here's new schools, right? Because we've opened a bunch of new amazing schools in the last 2-3 years. There's no data out there on like academics and a lot of survey data. So the schools kind of get the shaft. And you see it with admissions. Over the years, we've seen schools that are brand new don't necessarily get filled their initial classes like they should because there's no data. But if we flag, hey, these are brand new schools, 1-year-old, 2-year-old, 5-year-old, whatever it is, I think that would be beneficial because someone may want to go to a brand new school, right? All the new high-tech stuff, and it's the best of the best, literally. And you know, I mean, I'll just say like Gotham, when Gotham Tech opened in Queens, right? They had openings for a brand new school with an amazing program, but people didn't know about it because there was no data showing what it was and what it could do. And I think a new school flag would be beneficial. So, you know, I just wanted to put that out there.
Hi.
Ron?
Yeah, so besides what just mentioned about it, the parent may be shy or for any reason that they are not able to speak in the public session during the open house section. And then we may need the special session for the special needs family. That's true. And beside that, I want to add that. So I have kid in the general education. So when I check the website, when I cross-check the school that I'm interested in, I can see the state tax record, and I can see the demographic, and I can see the attendance of the school. But for the special education family, they want to see the class section available in that school. They don't need to go to the specific school to look at the NEST program, to look at the horizontal program. They just want one-stop service, like in my school account. So I can hit any program available, like the NEST program for certain school, or the ICT program, or I can check out whether that school have the shortage of certain service like OT, PT, or so there are some parents when they went to that school, they found that they have no speech therapist, and then they have to get the speech therapist outside of the school, and that is terrible for them, and it's so inconvenient for the kid. So for general education, I see a lot of option on the website. I feel very convenient. I can see the race, the teacher, anything, and the test score. Like test score, the state test score is so important for general education as a general education parent. But again, I also have the special education need kid. And when I try to look at that, I didn't see any criteria, any filter that I would like to see that I would like to cross-check, like let's say the ICT, or whether they have shortage of staffing in special education. Thank you.
Hey, good evening, everybody. Thank you so much. Suzanne Sanchez from the special education team here. I did want to answer a broader question. One that is a question we were seeing in the chat in a few different ways is about our specialized programs and when are there going to be more and what's the criteria for that. I do want to share here and thank our CCSE council members for their support in advocating that we are in conversation continuously with our partners in other city agencies to secure more funding to open more specialized programs. Right now, today, we do not have the resources to expand beyond what we have already expanded. We've opened up many new specialized programs to date this school year. Joanna Charles is going to get us the actual numbers on how many seats we've opened, and we're going to drop that in the chat for you all. So 2,000 more specialized program seats in the last 4 years. And we know that that's not enough. And we know that there are families waiting for seats in Ames, ACES, PATH, Nest, and Horizon. And we are seeking that additional funding and additional resources from our city agency partners. And we'll certainly appreciate and need the advocacy of the entire community around securing that and building those high quality programs close to home. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you, Ms. Shantez. How you doing? Um, we're grateful for that, and I work very hard with you because I'm very appreciative of it. I wanted to say it was one school that y'all opened in Queens, the D75 high school last year, in D29, which I was very grateful of it, and it's blossomed very well. The students that are capable to integrate and the other classrooms, the ICT, are y'all going to be able to do that more once we are able to get more D75 high schools? Because I know I was chasing SCA for buildings. I know they've been started running from me, spots, because the high schools only have a small seats, because I believe this high school only has about 70,
The new one?
70, 75 seats. It's very little. And they were saying that's the biggest the high schools are usually are. So I know it's a very big need for the high schools. So my question is, are we going to get more high schools? And if so, is it possible to be in other high schools so that the students are able to get that opportunity to integrate and get that knowledge and possibly get that diploma in those other specialty areas? And the other question I have that I know a lot of parents are still waiting to find out, what is the status of the other students in D75 to get their high school diplomas?
Great. You're asking, so thank you for lifting up the really important topic of inclusion, right? And how are we including and creating real inclusive opportunities for students? I'm going to shift this over to my colleague, Andy Corso, who's the Chief of School Support for District 75. And I'm going to step out of my lane, a drip here, so bear with me, and share hopefully you have all heard that there's a new interim acting superintendent of District 75, Dr. Keisha McCoy. And I do think it would be wonderful as the year goes on for this group to hear directly from Dr. McCoy about her vision for the district, because I think that it's pretty exciting. But in the interim, and not that you're second fiddle, Andy, but I'm going to turn it over to you.
100% second fiddle to Dr. McCoy. I'll take that every time. I'll take that every time. I'm going to try to parse out the questions in a few different ways. So first, when we look at high school need for District 75, absolutely agree that's something we take carefully into account, working with the Office of Student Enrollment, district planning, and space planning. How are we going to create the spaces that students need in high school in District 75? There's three main ways that happens. One is whenever there's new construction. Look, I just got some great coaching to slow down. I am excited. I am excited. I definitely needed that assist. So when we look at where do we find those seats, there's three main pathways. The first pathway is if there's new construction, looking at specially designing District 75 space within that new construction. Like at the new Northwell campus that we had come up this year. Exactly. Then that, that's what we need. We need good watchers. And so, and accountability. So that's one pathway. A second pathway that you mentioned is inclusion. So joining another high school. And so we're in active conversations right now with high schools about high schools that have space, adding a District 75 program there. And where those come up that you'll see them is in joint public hearings when we talk with them about that space. And then it comes before the PEP. And so those conversations you see unfold. Hugely supportive. And then the third is if there's some kind of new space. That often happens if we're repurposing a building, and most often happens for elementary school. Because for the high school, we do like it to be a little bit bigger so they have, just as you say, more options. So we are acutely aware of the need for high school seats. We are exploring all pathways to get high school seats, and Anthony and I are regularly in those conversations. And the last question I want to just tackle is, how are students in District 75 going to get their diploma? And I think this is very, very important. And again, there are some different ways that that occurs. And so we know District 75 schools don't grant a high school diploma because it's a program. And so there's a part, sometimes District 75 schools have a partnership with a community high school and are able to work out in a partnership. Sometimes it's an official inclusion program where the student moves from a District 75 classroom to an inclusion classroom, still supported by District 75, but part of that community school, high school. And sometimes our students actually say in 7th or 8th grade, I'm ready to transition back to community school. And that's something we want to encourage even more, that after a student has maybe been in District 75, K to 5 or K to 8, they actually have the skills that they need to transition back to community school. The last thing I'll say about graduation that we'll definitely be bringing back to this council and others is we're really excited and wanting to commit to the portrait of a graduate. How are we actually looking at the new state law for a portrait of a graduate to have different pathways to diploma and graduation than we've had today?
My question So my question is, because it was a little controversy a couple years ago about some of the students that was not able to integrate. Those are the ones that are very, severe or whatever. Um, they was only allowed to get a 4-year completion. And I know some of the parents was very upset because in the past, those students were able to get a high school diploma. And I know parents was appealing to the state. And I know everyone was looking into it. So what is the status? Are they going to eventually, or are they able to get a high school diploma again, at least? Or where are we at with this?
Right now, great question. We're still in the place that the state requirements for the diploma are the same for everybody. And District 75 does not grant that diploma. It's a completion certificate for that. And moving forward, I want to see what we can do with Portrait of a Graduate to have a new option on the table that does lead to that diploma. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we have a bunch of questions in the chat. We're gonna pass it to Office of Enrollment and Johanna to answer some of the questions in the chat. We'll come back to people on chat as well a little bit later.
I'm just going to read the question out loud so the Office of Enrollment can read it, can answer it. There was a question from Paola. It reads, will members of the Enrollment Office leadership be able to share with us more about the admissions process for newcomer immigrant students who are identified as students with disabilities and who are considered for international high schools, and the guarantee for students to receive their mandated services?
Thank you for reading that question, and thank you for the question, whoever put it in the chat. I'll start off by just saying that first, I do want to be clear that We do have enrollment, which is more so over the counter when you get to a family welcome center and you need to be placed into a program, versus admissions when you participate in the application process. And therefore, we've been talking a little bit about that, and that's my schools and other things. And Anthony, who's sitting here, can speak more about the admissions process. But just quickly for the enrollment, when we do have families who are new to New York, new to the public school system, and they do reach out to our office for support with placement, our teams, the enrollment counselors, they are always looking into the programs at schools to determine what's the best fit for the student. We do place blind to need. We don't look specifically for all of the services that that school offers, but we do want to make sure that we are considering what's the best fit for the student. And a lot of that is making sure that we understand that there are language supports that may be needed or any other supports where we can connect with the school and the principal. And then when the student is in school, then the principal and the school staff can work to fit their needs. And so we definitely don't want to add any barriers for students to get into certain schools, especially international schools. It's an opportunity to have a conversation, and then the support continues to happen in the school. Anthony, if you can speak on the admissions part, thank you.
So thank you, Travonda. And I think that's a great question that, we love to address, especially when we do have new students who are arrivals or new arrivals coming into New York City public schools. And there's many avenues to where that child is registered. But I first want to say that every student or any student that is new to New York City public or new to New York City is entitled to a New York City public school seat. If a family is showing up with an IEP, an out-of-city IEP, we typically partner with our colleagues at the various CSEs located throughout the city to do a comparable service plan. In addition, if the family is looking for placement immediately, we typically assign to a school to where the school is able to either do a comparable service plan, or B, go through with creating an IEP and doing the evaluation for a student to be recommended for the intended services. I would encourage families, if they do not necessarily know how to navigate and get to that process, to definitely visit a family welcome center to where we can, our staff members can connect and determine what is the best possible pathway for that child being enrolled in the school. But I think our goal is really to ensure that that child is tapped into the services that they've been receiving before entering a New York City public school.
Thank you. Let's switch over to accessibility. I mean, it's a big deal. We have so many inaccessible buildings, unfortunately, in 2025, and we still have way too much of our fleet that is not accessible. And on the My School site, it'll say partially accessible, right? Or fully accessible, or whatever it is. One of the challenges, and we're putting the onus on the parent or the student to figure out what partially accessible means. We've got that data in other DOE systems because we pull it up all the time for various, capital projects and whatnot. We need to find a way to be able to bring that into My Schools and make it so that a parent doesn't have to go fishing. We've got it. We've got to be able to integrate it. And I think, another thing with that is we've got to find a way to integrate more of that external data. Examples, 311 complaints, how many times has a police officer been called to a school? What other data points do we have? Which schools have an academic interventionist at that school? How many ICT classes per grade did they have the last complete school year? Which, I'll call it, rigorous classes, AP classes, had ICT available. And we can say all we want about it's supposed to be, if a student needs it, they're going to get it. I have been to a lot of info sessions this year where principals are very clear. We don't offer it for this. We don't offer it for that. You just decide if you want to go here or not based on that info. So I know what the law is, but the law doesn't apply at school level sometimes. And it's unfortunate, but it's just the real world. And so a parent needs to be able to go, give me a snapshot of what the school looked like last year. If they had 4 sections of math for 9th grade, how many of those 4 sections had ICT? How many special self-contained classes were in 9th grade, 10th grade, 11th grade, 12th grade? That type of, I'll call it more granular detail is necessary because that gives you a pattern of, is the school being compliant? Is the school offering programs? Because if they aren't, the odds are they're not going to magically start because your kid went there, right? I mean, it's just a reality. We may not, we know what the law says, but we also know reality. And the reality is we need more of a historic from the last school year. What did the school really look like? Same way we do for like activities, right? I think it's great. You show all the activities, you show the PSAL. We need a little bit more what's actually happening academically at the school in these pictures.
Just wanted to jump in. I wanted to answer another pattern question that we're seeing a good bit in the chat is, how do I know which schools have full-time social workers? Or how do I know if the school has full-time occupational therapy or speech therapy? There was one other question that I was seeing that I wanted to access to clinical mental health supports or SAPIS workers and things like that. So on one hand, I'm going to defer to the enrollment team as to what information is available for schools on the site. But the other point I want to just raise is that there is fluidity in staff. This school year or today, a school could have full-time social worker and full-time speech therapist. Next year, one of those UFT employees could opt to transfer through the open market hiring system and go work in a different school. And the school they are transferring from may hire someone new, or maybe they didn't have a candidate or an applicant to do so. So I just want to share that there is some fluidity and flux with some of these staffers, and it's not always the same year to year and sometimes month to month.
I think, again, a snapshot at end of year gives you a picture as a parent or family.
I was going to say maybe a solution to that is how many positions for those jobs are allocated at the school. So if a school has 5 OTs, how many are vacant maybe? That gives an idea of, if I send my kid here, there's a chance they might not get their services, or they might not get their full services if half of their OT is vacant.
Understood, and we take that and we hear that. And we'll bring that back to our larger group because it is a very fair and valid point, and I think you raised it as well, right? Like, the child needs speech therapy. How can I as a parent feel comfortable picking this school if I don't even know if this school has a speech therapist on site and available? And completely understand that. And that could be. Or the person could go on maternity leave and take extended childcare that we didn't, right? There's a lot of movement there. But your points are really, really important on this. And I do want to give the enrollment team an opportunity to share what information is available at a glance.
I'll start and then pass it over, but I just wanted to say, I know my schools has already a wealth of information and there's a lot of recommendations as far as adding more information. I think when I'm hearing partially accessibility, I get that. I have the same complaint when we're looking for schools to kind of use for other activities. Sometimes that information is not very clear to us. And so we can definitely look into seeing how more specific we can be there in my schools. And then the other thing that I heard earlier, I'm just wanting to get back to that, is more info sessions on the calendar. And I know I'm listening and taking notes, but these are things that we definitely are open to and trying to make sure that we're expanding, providing more information. But then there's some other things that I don't believe may be the right spot. You know, my schools, we can include a lot, but, you know, we try to make sure that this continues to be a system for applying to school. And I think that there are other places where we can share that information, perhaps on our website. And so we could continue to figure out what those metrics are that we can put that would be helpful, and maybe even having a link from my school to those spaces. But I did want to just make that clear. And this is very helpful to hear these things that are helpful for you, or everyone when you are applying. But I do want to make sure that we also know that we just can't overwhelm the system with all of this information. It just may get really lost. Exactly. But please add whatever else I missed.
I can speak to it and then turn it over to Peter and Anthony for a second. And just to kind of repeat back a little bit, what I'm hearing will be most helpful is a trying to gauge what's the likelihood that that this school will have what I need for my child, whether that's the speech therapy or OT or ICT for a certain class. What's the likelihood that this school will be able to deliver on it? So I hear that request very deeply, and that makes very good sense to me, especially in this banana system with so many options and so little time. How to get there, I don't know. I heard the proposed solution, which is a snapshot of last year or a snapshot of the current time, recognizing that things change. I want to bring up one caution I feel, and I don't know what the answer is that we will get to, and then I'll turn it over to Peter and Anthony. I'm just pausing for, because I think this is so important. It is not acceptable that we have schools who are not creating the services and programs that students need. And my caution is, if we label some schools, even with a snapshot of saying, this school offers ICT in this, it implicitly or explicitly lets other schools off the hook for the work that we expect them to do. And I wanna say, I hear the point you're like, anti-policy is not gonna give me what my kid needs or save me from interviewing 17 schools. So please know I hear that point deeply also. And I don't think we have the perfect answer yet. And our expectation is that every school will meet the students' needs. And so I'm holding that as part of the complexity. Peter?
Hi, and Mark, I wanted to go back to your question about, is there a place where we can see what a school already provides? Again, keeping in mind Annie's point that we expect all schools to serve our students. And while it isn't contained in my school specifically, there is a wealth of data that we are obligated to share with the public for families at all grade levels, not just those transitioning middle and high school, and that's where that information lives. So my schools does link to the school's quality snapshot, which under the instruction tab does list off our public reporting data on the provision of special education programs and services, which will also give you access to, and I believe Johanna might drop something in the chat, a list of links, our public reporting that City Council requires 4 times a year of us on the provision of special class ICT and sets at the school level, including related services. There's also the publicly reported class size report, which lists off types of classes at the high school level down to the section, the subject, and how many sections there are. Again, that is point in time, and we don't want to give the impression to families that because this happened in June, it will happen, because it is dependent on the students who arrive in a school. But it is a snapshot. And there's also a wealth, I heard the point earlier about data available on achievement, graduation rates, state test scores for students with IEPs. In the school quality snapshot will link to the performance dashboard, where you can filter by students recommended for ICT, sets, special class, and their achievement levels and graduation rates. So I will admit, I think we have a lot of data and information available on public facing websites, and it is a challenge to find it. It would become equally challenging if it were all in my schools. But it's available, and I think our schools, and we need to work with our schools, our middle schools and our elementary schools when applying for middle and high school, our counselors, to help families navigate those websites, because we should not expect families to navigate that all on their own. But it is available, but we do hope families take it with a grain of salt, knowing that this is a snapshot in time.
So I think this segues good to one of the concerns that I hear is families will go to an open house or they'll call the school and they'll be told, and it's not on their websites and things, but they'll be told that we don't offer ICT for AP. We don't offer ICT for foreign language. We don't offer ICT if they're in a CTE program. So if you want your kid to do any of those classes, they just need to get rid of the ICT. And it happens more than it should. It happens quite frequently, and I'm sure there are schools that are kind of the same schools will probably pop up. But this does happen, and sometimes parents aren't aware that they can say no this is not how it's supposed to be. My child has a right to the placement that's on his IEP or her IEP. And they'll just be like, okay, well, I want my kid to have these opportunities. I'm just going to get rid of ICT. And then they lose all their supports. And then the other thing too is I had a question about CTE. You'll see it in here, how the students with disabilities seats are determined. And I'll just use my own son for an example. He adores animals and is very, very interested in the CTE program at John Bound for their animal and agricultural science program. And I'm trying to find out if they have CTE for that. I haven't heard it. It's hard to, you can't get the information. They don't have it. You have to call the school for them to say, yes, he can get ICT when he's in this program, because they cohort the students and they all go to the same classes together. So there's that. That's just a real life example, right? The other thing is last year, if I look at the data, there were 1 seat for every 2 kids that applied with a student with disability, but all the gen ed kids that applied got a seat. So, and CTE programs are very attractive to students with disabilities who may not be quote unquote college bound, because it gives them real world experience. It gives them a trade. Some of them get certifications. They can go right into a career after school. And so I just want to know how those seats are determined and who makes those determinations, because I feel like my kid is kind of at an unfair advantage, an unfair disadvantage, because he has to compete for less seats than general education peers for a program that he really needs, because college may not be in the books for him,
I'm going to take the first part of that and then pass to enrollment for the seat availability. But I heard Mark mention something like this earlier, and it's a concern we've heard from this group and families, and Johanna will speak to this. We hear this from families. No school should be saying that they do not, and the word offer is not the right word. They do not provide services. I know they use that word. Should not, that they don't provide services in a particular subject. If it is on the child's IEP, it should be provided. And we, again, speaking to our public reporting, we work with superintendents and their teams and schools to ensure that every IEP mandate in every subject is fully served. If schools are saying that at tours or on the phone, we can only know that if families share with us through the special education inbox, specialeducation@schools.nyca.gov, that it has happened. And when we are made aware of it, we immediately address it with superintendents, teams, and the school. But we really do encourage that. I think this will be a point we hit throughout tonight, is if we know, if we're told the superintendent's office should hear about it, specialeducation@schools.nyc.gov should hear about it, and we will address it immediately.
Hi, so does it apply to the charter school?
Pardon, can you say it again?
Does it apply to the charter school if they say, oh, we don't offer ICT?
To non-public schools? No. Charter schools.
So charter schools have their own contract or guidelines or bylaws that they follow that's approved by their authorizer. So it's not the same rules that we have here in New York City Department of Education. So I think you'll work with the CSE there, and some charter schools offer the full continuum. Some charter schools do not offer the full continuum. And so that's based on their own charter of what they have agreed to offer.
Thank you, Andy. And I wanna just take a question from Jen Che, who's here in person. So thank you, Jen. And the question is, how does enrollment and dial enforce that no school gives out discriminatory messages in emails or open houses? And I would say that given that there are 1,100 schools, we are not in every school at every place at every time, and there's a zero tolerance for discriminatory approaches and discriminatory statements by our schools. As always, the first quote line, if a school says something that is discriminatory or dismissive of any student or family, but including those with a disability, is to connect with that school principal. If the principal is not responsive or is not responsive in a way that is satisfactory, then the next step is to go directly to the superintendent for that school. All the superintendent's information is available publicly on the New York City Public Schools website, and families can and should also email the special education inbox. I've heard a few people tonight say, I've been at an open house where the school said, we don't offer that. We don't have that. So wink, wink, you're better off applying somewhere else, right? We need to know about that, and we want to know about that so that we can address it in real time. No one is shy about emailing the special education inbox, and we don't want you to be shy. That is information that we need. So to answer the overall question, like how do we enforce it? We continue to remind and tell school leaders of their responsibilities and the directives from our chancellor, that every school follow the process and protocol that is laid out to them. Trevon, I don't know if there's something you or your team would like to add on schools having discriminatory practices toward students with disabilities.
I would say ditto. But this is just exactly what I was saying earlier, is that even when we are dealing with families who come to any of our offices and engage whatever schools they're interested in, we're always making placements based on students, their interests and family choice. And that is leveraged in every discussion, every decision that we make.
I think I'll add just one more piece here, because I think we don't want to just respond. We also want to be proactive. And so all of that happens. And this is huge credit, Jen, to you, to the council, to everyone who's given feedback over the years. Working together with the UFT, we did develop a rules and regulations training that's required to be given to every school staff member before or on election day. Specifically in that training is a question: true or false? Can AP classes be ICT? To really pull back the curtain on these myths and misconceptions. And we do verify that every single school holds this session with every single staff member. That's a proactive piece to make sure it's not just in a P digest, it's actually out trained in the school. Having said that, we know that still practices happen that are not okay, which is why we have the reactive in addition to the proactive.
Well, we're going to open it up quickly to the public. Any public questions from people on Zoom, please raise your virtual hand. We'll try to keep it tight with the question, but if you, any virtual questions? All right, Tam, go ahead. Please try to keep the question tight.
Sorry, that just made me laugh. You're like, especially you. Thank you for hosting this CCSE, and thank you so much for the Dial team and friendly, familiar faces in a room that I know there's a lot of tension right now. I know that you want to tell us better things. And compliance is a huge issue. You know, I just want to support what people are saying in the chat. It's real. My son's in 9th grade. He went through the high school application process. He was already in a 6 through 12, but we were kind of checking our options out. It was really daunting. It was really daunting. There was a lot of, you know, you can't come here. We don't offer sets. You're not going to get dyslexia support as a 9th grader. Are you kidding? After, you know, 11th grade, you don't get ICT anymore. They have tracking within programs. They have tracking even in, you know, Clinton's IB program. You can't go into these pathways. You have to go into those two over there unless you want to drop ICT. So I just think that a lot of families get sucked into these open houses and these glorious speeches from the principals and the support staff about how amazing they are with inclusivity. When if you actually go to that school and you've been fighting them and you've had them audited, you know that the ICT and the IEP non-compliance is off the charts. And so I get, Andy, what you're saying, like you don't want to flag certain schools as doing a great job because then these other schools feel like they don't have to, right? But I can't in good faith recommend certain schools to families knowing how badly how badly that school is doing with supporting them. So yeah, I don't know the solution to that. I would say more student voice, maybe more parents, more families speaking about their experiences. And then I'll end, Mark, really quickly. I do know that some middle schools in District 2, some middle schools in District 17 have, like, where the 8th graders and the 7th graders and the 6th graders, sorry, talk to students wait, I just got that mixed up. It's the kids who are applying to middle schools. They talk to graduates of that school who are on the other side, who went through the middle school application, who are already at the middle school, and they have like a feedback session with them. And so they get to ask all the questions and all the things. And a lot of the special education questions get answered inside those forums. So maybe more of that would be helpful too. Thank you.
Thank you, Tam. Okay. Any other questions from the Zoom audience?
I know
Heather?
Jen wants to ask a question, but real quick, I just wanted to circle back on how they determine how many seats in the CTE are for students with disabilities, because I think we jumped over that and didn't get it answered.
Not a problem. The reason why we're chatting here is that it's very similar for both middle school and high school. So between ODP, Office of District Planning, the school leadership team, and then our office, we work together to figure out how many heads and seats can happen at the school. And then I think from there, because you even brought up John Bound, for instance, the principal's team usually works on their programming and their staffing to divvy up, let's say if there's 200 seats at the school, and they're going to have 10 different programs, there'll be 20 students per seat, etc. But each year we go through with them based on how many seats they've had per program for prior years, how many students actually went in and attended the school based on their register at the end of October, the seats that they'll be having next year, right? So if they had a larger class than usual, they might need a smaller class the next year, so on and so forth. And we do that together. And if they've asked for an increase of seats or decrease of seats, we first need to make sure that they have the number of seats at the school to have those students there. And then we either approve or reject from there. Just one other small piece, and then I'll pass it back to you. One of the things that you brought up is within my schools, you're seeing like demand data and then seats per demand. That goes based off of the seats that are planned to be used for the process and then how many students wanted to apply from the prior year. So it's really difficult to say, for instance, that the seat number is not the same for GE versus SWD, but then it's basically based on how popular that program is, which usually starts from like local to the school, how many applicants are applying, and then moves out in waves. So you may be seeing, for instance, 2 applicants per seat for that program because it's a more popular program. Whereas for the GE students, they may be either applying to other programs within that school or otherwise. I know there was a lot of information all at once. Let me know which parts of that may have been confusing.
So then maybe I don't know if it's just me then and how the data is presented, because it looks to me like when you go that 100 kids applied for this program last year and 100 kids in gen ed got a seat. And 80 kids applied for students with disability for the same program and 40 kids got a seat.
I think for a lot of programs, how the seats are delineated within programs is not one GE student to one SWD student, but I do just want to say really quickly, for admissions, the delineation is not students without IEPs and students with. So there are also students who have IEPs that have the GEC group. Yeah, sorry, I'm making sure that I explain it because we'll also have parents on the Zoom and I want to make sure that that distinction is there. But a lot of programs don't have a one-to-one of general education seats to SWD seats for a program, but we can follow up on more of like the breakdown for different programs, especially ones for CTE and those seats for that programming.
And also in addition, I know for John Bound, I don't know the official term, but when they break it into the tiers, so a certain number are awarded to each tier, so it's more equitable. That's not really broken down either. I assume it's like quarters, but I don't know.
Sorry, I might need to follow up just to make sure. I would have to look at the program in the directory just to make sure whether you're discussing.
Are you talking op-ed or are you talking the group?
The op-ed. So Even in those seats for the CT program at John Bowne, for example, they take a number from each tier to make it more equitable. And that's really not broken down much either. Sorry.
No, you're good. We're getting in the weeds, but I want to make sure that we're not referring to educational option as tiers, just because it's how families colloquially refer to SCREAM programs as well. So for educational option, they have a category, no problem. For educational option, if there are 30 seats at the school, it will be upfront 10 seats for a high, 10 seats for middle, 10 seats for low. It's split into 1/3 if there are not enough applicants for any of those groups, but there are more for a different one, then it would backfill. And going back to what we discussed earlier, that's taken into account in the offer likelihood that you see. So if there are a lot of students who are middle applying to John Bowne, you may see a low chance of offer. But if a student has a low educational option category and is applying and there are not many applicants as low, they may see a high chance of getting into that program because that's how that admissions method works. Yeah, but we can also work on following up on the data across CTE programs, because I did hear your feedback that those are really interesting programs, and more about the delineation and split between GE and SWID seats for CTE programs.
The CT programs, like I said, are an attractive option for students with disabilities, you know.
So, Jen, you had one question? No, who's got a question?
Thank you. Jennifer Che, advocate, parent of 2 graduates with who had IEPs. So this is a question, but it's probably going to sound like a request. Is it possible for the school's directory in their description of the accessibility profile of each school, there's like a little report. It says like, you know, how accessible, like 3rd floor, no way, 2nd floor, yes way. But those reports are like, some of them 2017, 2018. Can we make those reports yearly or like updatable yearly? Like, can they just say, you know, the principal says, I swear this is still correct. You know, that makes it 2025. And then make those people put that information on the school website. Like, if they're fully accessible, I'd be proud. I want that report on the school website. You know, that'll also say something about the school and how much they care and how welcoming they are.
Thank you for that. We do recognize that some reports are 5, 6, 7 years old. So every year before the app launches, we actually reach out to schools and update the overview and the school information. So moving forward, we will build out a mechanism to make sure that the accessibility report is up to date. So if they're saying that the 2nd floor is not accessible, it's currently still not accessible. So we will definitely look into work that into our process moving forward.
I'll make sure I give you Tom's old information because he has a list of everything that's updated. It's his people that go to check on those sites to make sure that that blurb that's listed is accurate. That's his work. I'll send it to you quickly. I'm sorry I have to ask this question, but many of my parents have obviously students with disabilities, maybe 1 or 2 students that have mental health challenges. They are working. They're trying to apply for schools for 1 or more of their children. Some of them don't have days off. Some of them don't know when they can have days off. And many of them only have a cell phone for half a month and no computer. So I know my schools, but for our parents, it's no schools, no schools, no schools, no schools after the 15th of the month. So my plea, it's too early for this year. I will be around next year to see if it gets done. But I hope you can find a way to work with the libraries so that parents can explore options on the weekends or after work. Very often I would tell many of my families, well, you could go to the school. Guess what? No, you can't. You need an appointment to go to school, and you don't know when you're going to be off from work. Or I'll tell them to go to the Welcome Center. They'll help you. But what they need is time in front of a computer, maybe somebody who can direct them, or maybe they can use your directions to explore. They don't have that. And you are not aware of how many parents my schools does not work for. They do come to our alliance offices. We have 5. You have 1 in every borough, but that's not enough. Okay, so my plea is maybe there's a way for the boroughs to find a way to connect. You could start with Queens because one of our former chancellors is in Queens. Okay, right? Right? But find a way that parents can explore admissions processes because they can't get into schools. They can't spend the time in the welcome centers, and not all of them have phone service for a whole month. Not to mention, imagine trying to search for schools on a cell phone. Give me a break. What are we? We're all privileged here, but most of my parents are not. Thank you.
I can answer a little bit of that really quickly. Again, a lot of you must be psychic here. One of the things that we've been discussing, we meet with our partners at UFT. One of the things that we've been discussing is ways to support more of these families. I do think on the high level, we can discuss ways to give them access to that technology. But one of the things our team's raised is, let's say a family will have an hour to get in and look at schools. They're probably still starting from a very foundational level and won't reach the point that we want in them being able to make informed choices. So we've increased more bite-sized printable options within my schools, and we've been trying to work with guidance counselors because we think they can sort of bridge that gap. If I'm a guidance counselor of a student, I probably know a little bit more about that student and some schools that I might want to recommend. I can go into my schools and print a small PDF for maybe 5 or 10 schools, 1 or double-sided pages, and backpack that for it to go home. Because if they're having technological issues, that's probably not going to get solved within the admission cycle. But porting some of that over to the paper version, that is that bridge, because we did hear when we moved into this online process, that same old paper book does not exist. And we are working on what else can we do and what we make printable for my schools. We also, at both the high school and middle school level, worked on creating high school application worksheets and one-pagers that can also be backpack home that have some information. We don't want to overload them, but still we understand there are families that aren't really getting online, but we don't want that to be a barrier to engaging with the process at all.
With all of the, I'm sorry. We do work with all of the UFT parent centers, which of course close at 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, even though they have some evening workshops. But again, I think the library is really something we have to work on. Thank you.
And I would love to hear more about what you're thinking when you're talking about us partnering at the library, so we should connect and talk more about that. And Dennis and I, we talked a lot about some other opportunities earlier, so we definitely can have that conversation again.
Okay. Yep. All right, we are at the time we need to wrap up. We've kept you over time. What's that, Heather? Okay. Yeah. I just want to say thank you for office enrollment coming out. This was a great
Before you
discussion.
go, sorry, Mark, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I just want to double check the phone lines, yeah, the interpretation lines, yeah, to see if there's any questions. And before doing that, I do want to highlight that these conversations are very important. Thank you all for being here. The public loves hearing from you in person. I know it's a long meeting, but again, just showing you showing appreciation from all the members and, to you, Suzanne, and the team. Thank you.
Thank you. And if there may be questions in the chat that we didn't get to, we're going to download the chat questions and make sure that we do respond to something there. There's there's some comments that are not questions, but they're more comments. So, but certainly questions we will do our best to get back to. And I believe Johanna dropped in the chat the special education at schools.nyc.gov inbox where you can email us. That is manned directly by Johanna and her colleague Brittany. So I very quickly want to acknowledge and thank Travonda, you and your team for being here tonight. Thank you.
No, thank you again. This was a really good discussion. Thank you, everybody. And also Office of Special Education, thank you for coming out. Appreciate your support. But thank you, Enrollment. Thank you, Office of Special Education. Appreciate it. Okay, we're going to take a couple minute break and then we'll get resuming with the rest of our calendar meeting. The calendar meeting, thank you for the understanding and the pause in our meeting, but we're ready to get going again. Next item on our agenda is a resolution that was sent out on Monday. The resolution is on busing. So wanted to see, is there a motion to open discussion on the busing resolution?
I make a motion to open discussion on the busing resolution.
Is there a second?
I second.
Okay, all in favor of opening a discussion on busing resolution, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, so as stated, there was a resolution that was put forth in email and sent out to the community. The resolution is on improving bus service for students with disabilities in NYC. I hope if you haven't had a chance to read it, please look on your packet, members. Rose, thank you. So Rose is putting it on screen. She'll scroll down in a little bit on that. The version that you are seeing is actually a proposed with amendments to it. We'll get to that in a moment, but I just want everyone to see. So if you see anything in red, that is stuff that would be, and strikeouts, that would be an amendment offered. We're not quite at that point for an amendment, but want to put it out there for the community. So does anyone want to talk about proposed resolution? Yes. Can you, if you could put the original up for now, because we'll do amendments if people want to have an amendment. I'd like to, yeah, Rose, if you could do the original that was sent out to the community, it would be great. Thank you.
So one that's not in the amendment one, I think.
The original.
In the original.
Yes.
I think there needs to be a whereas about the chancellor's regulations and how they haven't been updated. They've,
Sorry, Heather, do you want to add the language just so we could add that?
I don't know.
Do you have language for that?
I don't have the language for
Okay.
it
So
right this moment, but
you could type up or work on it in your head and then type it into the chat and we can
yeah,
discuss it at that
because the
point.
chancellor's regulations, I mean, they still refer to city bus companies that have now been consolidated under the MTA. There's just a lot in the chancellor's regs that is obsolete and doesn't even apply to busing, how it currently is now. And the PEP, I think, needs to be encouraged to update it to reflect the current process and stuff.
Okay. So if you could think about how you'd want that phrased, and then we can offer that up as a proposed amendment.
Hi,
Ron, go ahead.
yeah, so this is Ron. I see here, be it result the NYC DOE authorized GPS. So the GPS bus data, I just wonder, so because many parents, they concern the bus driver, they never open the app for the parent to track where's the bus. I'm not sure whether the GPS here is talking about the same thing as the app.
So Ron, you're talking about the proposed amendment that I put forth? You're looking at the one that's got red, right? That's not the original. That is a proposed amendment that I would put forth in a few moments. The original is the one that Rose has. It's the 1.5 page document. So I can certainly talk about GPS. So local law, so city law requires every yellow bus to have GPS. So that is the law. So every bus has GPS. Now, there is a secondary part, which is the school bus app that relies on the GPS, but doesn't have to be turned on if the bus driver doesn't turn it on. The GPS is on no matter what. So the DOE is getting data, real live data, if the app is being turned on by the driver or not. The DOE still has that data because it's required by law. So, and that's why if you saw one of the contracts that was put forth by a representative of a bus company at the PEP last month, that contract did talk about GPS in there. And the reason it's talking about GPS in there is because it's the law that they have to have GPS. Thank you, Rose. But the app is different from the GPS in that the app today doesn't have to be turned on. It's supposed to be turned on, but it doesn't have to be because there's a lack of it in the contract for bus drivers. So there's like guidance, but guidance is not the same as actual law. And so that's why in my proposal, which we'll bring forth, I wanted to have GPS a little more stringently used and data provided, because the app is great if it works. I can tell you the app has not worked for my kid the last 2 weeks. And so I'm doing I hope he's coming. I hope the bus driver's coming. And, Monday I had to drive the kid to school. And of course, with self-reporting as it is, there was no self-reporting. The bus never showed up. And I know the bus didn't show up because I got a call at 7:15 for a 7:20 pickup saying, we're still at the bus yard. We're not going to be able to come for at least an hour. Do you think you can take your kid to school? And other people on the route got the same call after talking to their people on the route. And we all ended up taking our own kids to school, but they never self-reported it. So according to DOE's self-reporting system, the bus showed up in the morning, which it didn't. And that's part of the problem, where the GPS does show the bus never moved from the yard, but the app doesn't show anything because they never turned on the app and they never self-reported that they failed to do their job. And that's some of the challenges that when I put forth my proposed amendments to the original, that's kind of the backstory as to why. Okay, so Heather put in the chat a whereas amendment, so we'll talk about that in a moment. But I think quick backstory on why we're talking about this today. So a lot of you were at the PEP meeting, either online or in person last month, and saw a very interesting PEP meeting, the most vocal PEP meeting I have seen in probably 8-10 years. Last time it was that bad probably was when we had the bus strike, which was about 11 years ago, 12 years ago. I think no, God, it was 2012, 2013. I don't know. That's when I had hair. It tells you just how long it's been. But that's probably the last time the PEP was that ornery and wild. But it was a good discussion. The PEP at that time turned down the mayor's 5-year contract. And just so you know, backstory, I did find out the reason the 5-year contract was put forth to the PEP is because the mayor's office demanded the 5-year contract. So it was very interesting to see. So the PEP unanimously, which is honestly the first time I've ever seen the PEP unanimous on anything, and they were unanimous 3 times during that PEP meeting, stated that we're not going with a 5-year contract. We're not going to settle for this bad system and bad service continuing for 5 more years without any changes to the poor system. And thank goodness they did that. What's now come forth is there is a new PEP meeting coming up this month in a week and a half from now, where the PEP has now been given by the mayor's office, a 3-year contract. So again, it came from the mayor's office. Now they want to do the same contract for 3 years. Again, it's the same contract that's out there today. So the same level of service and quality that you get today, if you can call it quality, is what they're proposing, where our kids don't get after school, our kids don't get weekend, our kids don't get summer busing at the same level, where you may know if you've got your bus coming, you may not. You know, it's a system that's broken. And so the mayor wants to continue with the 3-year. So the PEP, I'm not sure where they are, honestly. I've heard from some PEP members that they're looking 1 year. Some are contemplating the 3-year. I haven't heard any PEP member that's solidified on 3-year that, yeah, this is where we're definitely going to be. So part of it is, part of the reason why we brought forth this resolution is to make sure we can let PEP know before the PEP meeting, CCSE and our students that we represent the position. So PEP is abundantly clear, and we also want to make the DOE abundantly clear on what our students need. And so that's kind of the backstory about why we're at where we are. So the contract that's out there now is good through July 31st, right? I'm sorry, December 31st. I have apologies. So the contract has got another month and 3 weeks before it expires at the end of really the Adams administration. So our new mayor is going to be saddled with no contract as of January 1, which is interesting in itself. But yet I can't imagine any bus company is going to start up with the new mayor and you know, just say we're not going to bus kids around, because that would be a bad start if they ever want to be busing in the city ever again. So there's probably going to be a let's say there was no contract agreed to by the PEP of 3 years. Let's say PEP says we ain't doing 3 years, Mayor Adams. Mayor Adams has got to decide, is he doing 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, 4 year, 5 year, and put it back forth for the December meeting. And if that gets turned down, then you're gonna have to go with this another 30 or 60-day extension into, you know, February or March. What's interesting how the contract works though is whenever, you know, if it's a 3-year contract, it's really a 2.5-year contract because it starts on July 1. So it does get backdated to when the last contract was when the last contract ended. So a 3-year is really a 2.5 year, a 2-year is really a 1.5 year, a 1 year is really a half-year contract. Challenge I have with a 3-year contract, that's way too long. We can't have our kids waiting another 2.5 years of this terrible service. The problem I have with a 1 year is July 1, all of a sudden we're at the same, you know, July 1 and not that many months, we're at the same point we are today with where are we at? And the challenge is ultimately for some of this stuff to happen, you need the state to pass some laws and you need the governor to sign it. Now, the governor doesn't usually like signing stuff till November, December. It's very rare she signs a bill that's passed in June, in July. So we got a problem that we have to have the state do stuff. And then we have to negotiate a whole brand new contract. And I am told by legal that the last contract took about a year to negotiate. So if that's the case, my general feeling is fine. We need a 1.5 years. You know, what we call a 2-year contract is probably realistically what we need, because we're not going to have everything locked up by July of 26. Heather, go ahead.
I think the important thing that Mark is highlighting too is that the contract that is going to serve as our kids and the union bus workers, so those are the mechanics, the matrons, the drivers, and will encourage to fill a lot of the vacancies and shortages, is the contract needs to provide employment protections. And currently the state law does not allow that to be included in the contracts. So a law has to be passed in Albany before they can negotiate EPP in the city contract with the bus companies. So it's very complicated in that sense. So we can say they need a new contract, they need a new contract, they need to rebid a new contract, but it can't really happen the way it needs to unless the state passes that law.
No, thank you, Heather. I left that little part out. Thank you. So yeah, so state needs to do some stuff. The city needs to do some stuff. OPT has a lot of stuff they need to do, and the city is really negotiating a contract with OPT involved. And look, there's still plenty of issues at OPT level that we need to get fixed, but that's not the bus contract, right? Routing is OPT, it's not the bus contract. I have plenty of complaints. We have all plenty of complaints with routing. Ron, Heather, Maggie, all of you can talk about the torture of routes. And like, to be fair, it's the most complex, convoluted challenge that exists. I mean, right? They have actually more routes than the MTA has. Literally, it's the largest bus route system in the nation. I mean, we're the biggest city, so it kind of works that way. But the reality, it is complex, and I'm not gonna put OPT off the hook, but I'm also gonna say the reality is it is a colossal undertaking they're going through. That being said, when you're still doing stuff by hand in today's day and age, that's a problem. You know, when we buy Via, and we bought Via back in de Blasio days, so not going to bash on current Mayor Adams on that. We bought Via. It took us 5 years before we got the Via app out there, and I still can't even get on it today. You know, so there's still issues, but it's partially OPT, it's partially DOE, it's partially bus company, it's partially state law, it's partially city law. There's a lot of little things in play. That being said, my feeling is whatever, if we choose to do a resolution and approve one, my feeling is we need to put the kitchen sink in there. Everything that we think our kids and families need, I want in the resolution, because I want to be able to have us go to OPT, to go to state, to go to city, and go, this is what our families need. Right? Not having just a generic resolution that says we want better busing. Doesn't work, in my view. We got to list all the little details. And so I have, and I sent out today, and Rose printed up, and it's got all the little red marks in there and the strike throughs, my proposed amendment. So we'll get to that in a bit, but I just wanted to let you have a framework of where I'm at.
Before we go
Can
to
I-
Susie, one second, before we go to Susie, Mark, I just want to, for folks, the public, and for the council to consider as well, is that the governor is also going to, there's going to be elections for the governors, so there's going to be a governor's race. That's also something to consider, given the fact that she can veto whatever the legislature passes, or she can sign off on it. So just, you know, as an FYI. Oh, go ahead, Susie.
Okay, sorry. And I'm glad that you guys brought that up, and Mark, because I think one of the things that we do want to focus on, especially with those contracts, is just making sure that they are catering to our special needs children and that it's not an afterthought. So that's something important, not just the money. So, yeah.
You know, the PEP does, the contracts are available on the PEP's website. For 3 years, the total is $5.4 billion for just those few companies. That's not all the bus companies, but for 3 years, 5.4 billion, and that's just a sliver of the total companies involved in this whole thing. So we're talking big money. It's just rolling over, and the service you're getting for 5.4 million or 5.4 billion with the B doesn't make a lot of sense to me. We're paying a lot of money for substandard service. And look, it's not the bus drivers. The bus drivers are getting paid $23.75 for their pay if you sign up today. If you want to be a bus driver and you have the certificate and certification you need, it's $23.75 an hour. They ain't raking in the dough. Bus owners are raking in some serious money at 5.4 billion, but it ain't falling down to the drivers, the matrons, the paras, that's for sure. I mean, Joanne sent out the note earlier this week about para pay. What was it, 29,000 is intro pay for paras? I mean, it's the money tree ain't falling too far from the owner's booth. You know, 5.4 for just those few companies for 3 years is a lot of money. And it's not trickling down. It's definitely ain't trickle down economics that's being played out there. But what is trickling down is our kids are getting hosed.
Another thing to, sorry, Mike, to interrupt you, but another thing to point out is, interestingly, at the PEP, I don't know if you guys saw, there was a contract passed around. It's not confirmed or denied whether that was the actual proposal of a contract. I would suggest to read it over because there are some items there, like I saw some language around non-disclosure, which is alarming. And there's nothing there, as far as I know, on the EPP, which was something that was brought up at the PEP meeting over and over by representatives of the company, of the bus companies and company vice presidents and owners themselves. So it's just something to consider that, if this can be used as a sample or an example of a contract, there's nothing there that actually holds everyone accountable. And so that's why it's so important to do that advocacy that's really, really needed for the state because right now the EPP bill, the S1018 8440 is stuck in committee. So we need to pressure the governor and the state legislature to pass this bill because that is the only way that we're gonna be able to get retention from the busing staff. That means drivers, that means matrons, because these are people that hold our kids' lives in their hands. They are responsible for taking them to school safely, bringing them to the home safely, and they're getting paid peanuts. And there's no protection for that staff. And so we have to ask ourselves, what is the value of our kids when you're talking about workers? And also, listen, if there's like if the buses are always having issues, mechanical issues, or the fact that they're very old, Heather, I don't know, I think you mentioned a comment about like how old were these buses and what about that? Like, can we add language around that? Thank you.
Really add language. I mean, the language in there gives a 15-year lifespan for a bus, which, MTA's got buses that are much older than 15 years. So, and Heather's point is the maintaining of the buses is the bigger issue. The age of the bus you can have a 5-year-old bus that's in terrible condition. You can have a 15-year-old bus that's in perfect condition. Depends on how much they're refurbished. I mean, heck, you've got MTA subway cars that are 50 years old and they're still viable. It depends on the quality of the taking care of the capital, in this case, the bus fleet. And that can vary, and certainly if you want to put language in there about quality of maintenance or whatnot. I mean, I'm personally less concerned about 15 years as I'm concerned about the quality of the fleet and the maintenance and maintaining the fleet.
Yeah, I think maintenance is important. And I think we could discuss that because I think that the buses keep breaking down. Why is that? They keep getting fixed, but they keep breaking down. So even like if it's not on the resolution, like pushing for that language to be, or for something to be done around that, it's really important.
So any further discussion, or do we want to go to amendments? What's the council's feeling? Go ahead, Heather.
Dr. Sinai just got here, so I want to give her a chance to discuss if she wants to.
I mean, I think looking at the amendments, I thought, maybe the amendments that you actually put forth, I know you said you would speak about them later. I thought they were good. One of the concerns that I did have is that portal, a lot of parents in my district, I can't remember his name, but as he explained that not being able to see in real time where their kids are, unfortunately, I feel like we're in sometime in power and privilege that we can get in a car and drive our kids to school. Where a lot of parents, when they get the message that the bus is not coming, or they wait and it doesn't come, they then are relying on public transportation that can take a much longer time, which then puts the kid, depending on the age of the kid, out of routine. So I just think having some sort of accountability around the system or asking for more information about how, because that system came out a few years ago.
January 24. Yep.
Right, but where's the accountability and the effectiveness of the system? Who's monitoring it? I just feel like that was the only thing I had to add to it, but I think everything else was great.
Thank you. Now, and just so you know, the contract that was distributed at PEP, if it's valid or not, and Liz, General Counsel for DOE, says it's not valid, but I don't necessarily believe that. It could have been a very early draft, may have been, a year-old draft, but it certainly seemed pretty semi-legitimate. It did have a thing about 90% app compliance. Now, I think 100% is the only compliance number that matters.
Well,
But
where do we find the data for that? That was the concern. They did have a number, but they didn't have what was the monitoring system that kind of monitored that from the start? Because while they're saying 90%, there's a lot of parents in my district saying that they can't even get on. So I can get in the room and say it's 90%, but where's the proof? How do CECs get access to it so that we can see where the breakdown is? Because clearly there's a breakdown.
that's
I will say
Good.
that in the contract that we're not sure that was passed out at the PEP, that contract does say that if they fail to turn on their GPS, they're fine. The bus companies are given liquidated damages for failing to turn on their GPS. But I don't think that's related to the app. I think that's just related to the GPS data that OPT has access to.
correct. I mean, technically, the GPS is supposed to turn on automatically because of city law, pardon me, it's local law. That being said, I think there's something that you have, and I don't know for sure, but I think there's something you have to press to say you're like bus number 1, 2, 3, 4, or your route M1, whatever, or Q1, whatever.
I think
I think
also
that's
the
the gap.
driver has an ID number that's inputted into the system, and if their number is not correctly in the system, they can turn it on and it still won't show. There's some issue with how drivers are able to log in as well. So it isn't always that the driver isn't turning it on. It's the driver has not been added to the system, which is also a problem.
If that's the case, then I mean, the reality was the purpose of the system was to really give families in real time understanding of when buses were coming or not. Because for years, that was a problem, right? So if we have all these glitches, that's what I'll call it,
Yep.
then my question is, within the resolution, maybe we can say something like, how are you addressing those issues? Because at the end of the day, it's great that you're saying 90%. One, I'm a data person. Well, where's the data? How do we know? Who's monitoring? What office is monitoring this? And then if you know you have glitches, then it's not the bus driver's fault. I don't care who fault it is, I still don't know where my kid is. Right? And so someone needs to fix it. What's the purpose of having a system if it's not working properly? And 1.5 years, almost 2 years, is long enough for somebody to figure out how it's supposed to work.
In addition to that, what we've seen on the ground is then the bus companies have a lot less communication with parents because they're like, well, you have the busing app. So now, even though they were never required to, matrons won't call anymore. They don't even give you a pickup time anymore because they're like, well, check the app. And when the bus is near your house, you need to come down and get on the bus. So they're not given a pickup time, which also they're supposed to be given a pickup time so that if they don't show up in time, you can hold them accountable. And the drivers are not communicating with parents on their dry runs, none of that, because they're all saying, well, they can just use the app. But they don't have access to the app. So they've kind of washed their hands of communicating with parents because they have this magic app that's supposed to tell parents everything when it really doesn't tell them anything.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is Be it resolved that NYC DOE must publish daily app usage by route by run, AM, PM, after school, to a website that also must be accessible by NYC open data. Right, so that way we're seeing in the morning, did this route have the app on? In the evening, did they have their route running on the app? And then you also have if there's an after school run.
Because what that will do in the long run is you may have drivers who are not doing what they need to do. You'll see in spaces where the trends are, where you can then hold people accountable. Because I can guarantee in more areas where families are not as wealthy as other families, they may have more struggles, right? And so you can't really account for anything or hold space to help people if you're not even getting real data or clear information on something that was invented to supposed to be to support parents. But yet again, you've created a system that is flawed and no one is really trying to fix it. But you're sending parents to it as if it works properly.
And it would also resolve the self-report problem. So if the GPS data shows that they showed up at the school at 10:30 in the morning, when school starts at 8, you'll be able to see that very clearly. And it's not waiting for the bus company to tattle on themselves, which they don't want to do.
So I want to bring up that, so if we check, if we review the mystery contract that displayed in the PAC meeting, and it does say something about the GPS compliance rate in the contract.
Yes.
So they will fine the company penalty if their compliance GPS compliance lower than 90%. They will charge them $75 a trip for single trip, and there's no gap. So in my opinion, if that contract is true and is in reality, they're doing that contract, they're signing that new contract extension, I think the bus company will comply with that. But the problem is, as a parents, we don't know that. We don't know all the data, and we are looking for open data. But I think if you were the bus company, you may have to comply with that, because this is really hard for them. The DOE will charge them, will fine them $75 a trip if their compliance GPS compliance rate lower than 90%. It's on the mystery contract, but we don't know the real one.
Apparently, they're not fining bus companies today, and it's already in the current version of the contract. They're not, I've been told by people within senior leadership that they're not fining the bus companies for lack of compliance on the app today.
Not to mention that the bus companies, when they do their budgets and things, they budget in liquidated damages as a cost of doing business. So to me, it's not the most effective way to get compliance on some of these issues that are like repeated over and over again.
I just wanted to chime in, and I don't know if this is the place for it, but can you hear me? Thinking about like the data, so like reporting data is one thing, right? But then is there room for verbiage about using that data to inform decisions in a timely manner? So like they'll inform families if we're rerouting within 24 hours, but if we start to see patterns in like kids with limited time travel, and we're always violating that, like for weeks in a row, and we're figuring it out. Now this kid is missing up till 10:30 a.m., missing all of that school for, 3 days a week. It's just this trend that we're seeing. Can they make decisions about routing in a timely fashion to make that stop happening?
In theory, they're doing that. In theory, look, real world, I think they lack a big enough data team.
Yeah.
They don't have enough data scientists. They have a lot of GPS data they receive that's in real time. I don't think they're pouring through that data, because if they were, they would not be routing by hand all the special education curb to curb routing. I think that's a real deficiency, is they just don't have enough data people crunching the numbers and really seeing that. They work more on the reactive when they get a phone call as opposed to proactive. And I think that's a transformative process that needs to start at the top of OPT and it's a complete overhaul of how OPT is run. And I think that's part of the challenge that it's a transformative change that has to happen in OPT because they have to become customer centric. And right now they're more, I'll call it bus company centric. And we need them focused on the kids. And it's not there today. And I don't think it's necessarily by intention, but I think it's just how they're structured, how they're formed, and who they have on their team. And they need to rebuild and re-strategize how they exist and what their role is. But I'm happy if you want to come up with language as a recommendation of how they need to move forward as an organization within OPT, because I think that's critical. And I certainly didn't put that in there. And I thank you for bringing that forth.
You did sort of, because it does say, I don't know what line this is, but be it resolved that NYC DOE utilize GPS bus data to determine if a bus is late and not rely on self-reported data. So not relying on self-reported data is I think what Mark talked about earlier was that, yeah, you know, it should be automatic, quote unquote. And also the line at the last page, the second line, be it resolved that NYC DOE and bus companies must share all complaint data except for personally identified data on NYC open data. So, I mean, take from that language and just try to add.
And there's something it's correct. It's true that once the companies do sign the contracts, then they will have to comply with the requirements, with the new requirements. But the other thing to keep in mind is that the bus companies did not create the NYC school bus app. So it all goes back to the DOE and the OPT. So I guess we also have to be clear on the issues.
Yeah,
'Cause
no,
that's not gonna.
100%, because and that's what I tried to say at the beginning. There's a lot of fault that falls on many different groups. There is DOE leadership on the 4th floor here. There is OPT in Long Island City where they're based. There is the bus companies. There is state law. There is city law. There is a lot of blame, but there's also a lot of opportunity to refocus on our students and fix the problem.
So I think what's really coming up is contract extensions. So these contracts have been in place for 45 years and they've been awarded to these companies for 45 years. And it really comes to, do we make amendments through negotiations to amend the contracts and extend them to these same bus companies, many who are for profit? And if you're a for-profit business, you're always concerned about the bottom line. And when it comes to human beings and services, for profits, and this is my own opinion, are notorious for cutting corners so that they can make a higher profit, which means cutting corners on servicing our young people and our students, right? Not maintaining the buses how they should, not employing the amount of people that they need to provide appropriate services. So what's happening is really coming up against, do we keep extending and amending the same contract that's been around literally as long as I've been alive? And I am not young. I'm not a young person. I will be half a century old in a couple of years. Or do we write a new contract and do a rebid so other people and other companies have an opportunity to file to respond to an RFP with a new contract, give other people a chance, because these legacy companies have shown for decades that they're not servicing our students. And there are issues on both sides, absolutely. There's a couple be it resolves I want to add, like OPT needs to modernize their routing. Their routing is so archaic to improve and enhance the bus routes, right? So that's something that can help. When a person calls and makes a complaint every day for the bus being late, it goes into some void, right? They get assigned a ticket and get sent an email, but nobody follows up on that. It can go months and OPT never calls them. They log in, they never give a response on their ticket. They're just their complaints are, as far as a parent's concerned, it's just going into some void, right? There's no response to parents that call OPT call line, you know?
I think I agree with you just in terms of the current contract in those legacy companies. One of the things I think we have kind of moved away from is just giving people the notion that you just get it because you've always got it, right? And so which also breeds the notion of not necessarily having to see the human being that they're serving, because they know that regardless of what they do, they're going to get it. But in this day and age, when you do have other up and coming companies, up and coming things, if that is the truth and that we decide to say, you know, we would like those contracts rewritten to really better support the children that they serve, the families that they serve, and open it up to other companies. I think one thing we must put in that part of the resolution is that parents or parent leaders need to be part of the conversation as you rethink about how you're going to rewrite these contracts. Because oftentimes with a lot of city agencies, you get people in the room who don't have kids who use buses, who don't understand, and they write contracts that don't necessarily take into account the needs of the people that they're serving. So I think that's a great idea, but making sure that we also put that if a revision is done, that those that a committee or whatever to put together, because remember, this has been around, as you say, over 40 years. So a lot has changed in 40 years. Just how we live has changed in 40 years, and travel. So I think it's important that parents be a part of that conversation. However, they choose to incorporate parents in who have children using busing, that needs to be said, because if it's not said, they'll just assume that we don't want to be a part.
Here's my proposed amendment that be it resolved that NYC DOE bring parent leaders into the new bus contract discussions as representatives at that. No, sorry. My apologies. So I just put in the chat box, be it resolved that NYC DOE brings in parent leaders into the new bus contract discussions as representatives, oops, I brought the S, at the table. Because I think is that what you're looking for, or do you want me to change it up?
But don't forget to put the part about opening it up to other possible companies.
Okay, so I would, why don't we do that as a second
Yeah,
amendment? I would rather have that as two separate parts.
like a rebidding process.
Yeah, so be it resolved that NYC DOE initiates new contracts with the above items included, and what creates be resolved that NYC DOE initiates new contracts with the above items included and brings contracts forth to any and all companies that want to bid. I need some help on that. I'm sorry.
Rebidding process.
And rebids,
Which will allow other companies to, right?
new.
Because you have these legacy companies that have been around before I was born that still are running bus routes.
So here's what I got, and correct me before I hit the enter button. Be it resolved that NYC DOE initiates new contracts with the above items included and rebids with a new RFP. Reasonable? And again, we'll have to, if we decide to do amendments, we'll have to vote on the amendments either as a package or as individuals. But and again, there's other amendments out there. I know Heather's working up one, and Maggie, I see in her notes, she's got a few. So if you have proposed amendments, if you could please start typing them up or let
Yeah.
us know so we can type them in.
Yeah, I'm gonna type mine in. So, I know you have your in here.
Yeah.
In this one.
Rose, can you flip to the proposed amendments? So
So
these,
I don't have any issues with the first page and the crossed out part.
Okay.
Um,
So Rose is putting up the proposed amendments that I put forth and emailed out to council earlier today. Page one, Heather is saying, and what I did is I changed the language instead of New York City Public Schools to their official name of New York City Department of Education, because that's what they're still legally known as.
I think it's
Some
fine.
NYC DOE, because ultimately they serve public students in DOE districts, they serve public students in charters, parochial schools, non-public, special, schools, 853s, 4410s, private. They serve it all, and I don't want it to seem like they're just serving districts 1 through 32 and 75, 79. They serve a lot more.
Thank you for that, Mark. I only added that because in previous resolutions, we had them as NYCPS, so I don't know, but yeah.
I also think that it's in a couple places in here where it talks about busing for after-school programs.
Yep.
I don't think it's too far to ask that they provide busing for city-funded after-school, like the DYCD-funded after-school programs.
Okay, so let's,
Because some schools will fund their own private after-school programs, and I think
Yes.
you get in the weeds a little bit there. But if it's a city-funded program, they should get busing. So if they get DYCD funding for their after-school program, then those kids should be able to get busing.
okay, so that would be the very last line on the
And,
first page and going on to the second where
Yeah.
it says, be it resolved that the Office of Pupil Transportation, OPT, and NYC DOE ensure students with disabilities are guaranteed busing and transportation accommodations, in parentheses, such as busing paraprofessionals for all after-school activities such as sports, after-school tutoring, and extracurricular clubs.
and city-funded extra or after-school programs.
Maybe you can say for all city-funded after-school activities and sports and after-school tutoring.
Okay. For all city-funded, funded after-school programs.
Yeah, but you already have it, just add for all city-funded. And then you can
For
keep
all-
everything you have there.
Okay, for all city-funded and then after-school activities such as sports, after-school tutoring, and extracurricular. Okay, so city-funded, we put in after all and before after-school.
And then
Okay.
it's also in your next be it resolved. I put it after the busing paraprofessionals.
For all
city-funded.
city-funded.
Yeah.
Okay, I will pop that into the. Let me add those two in. Thank you, everybody. It takes a village, right? That's why we're here.
And then where you have about the utilized GPS.
Hold on, you're too fast for me. I'm slow. I'm old. I'm past this. I'm past the half century mark there, Ms. Heather. Unlike you, Yunnin. All right, so I'm gonna copy and paste that in, and then I'll. All right, so that's the two changes where we plopped in the city funded. Yeah.
So then at the bottom,
Okay.
I think about the GPS data, it just put in data needs to be made public. Just some way to.
Okay. All right.
Where do you want that, or should we put that?
And this might be something we could collapse into two. This is the data I'm talking about. If the DOE has access to the GPS data, they should publish when buses are arriving at school. Right? So we should be able to look at when the buses arrived at the school for that day. And if we know that that school starts at 8 and their bus didn't get there till 10:30, then that bus is late. And it's not self-reported. Like the city, the schools already have access to that data. They should publish it.
Okay.
Where we have access to it.
Yep. Okay. No, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Maybe having them access it on this alleged portal that's supposed to be parent friendly.
Yeah.
Versus them coming up with another space where you have to go dig for the information, because they'll still say they're reporting it, but they'll put it someplace else where you may not necessarily, you would have to take a 2 or 3 step to find. So maybe have it somewhere within the portal and stay in that, because that's where parents are gonna first look.
So how about on that? So we have that line that says, be it resolved that NYC DOE utilize GPS bus data to determine if a bus is late and not rely on self-reported data. Fail to turn on GPS data on the bus must mean that the bus route did not happen, and thus payment for the bus run must be clawed back or withheld. I want to go with more than $75, Ron. I mean, my opinion is if you didn't report it, it didn't happen and you don't get paid for it. I don't believe in $75. That's not enough initiative. You don't get paid for the run if you didn't do your job of turning it on. But here then I would add then bus arrival and departure time from the school is daily bus arrival and departure times must be reported on the family facing web portal and included in NYC open data. Right? So that way it's always out there. We can see it. So I will post that after I correct my terrible spelling.
And then in the next, be it resolved that you have, it's duplicated.
Yeah, I
So we can,
took that out.
and
Thank
then we
you
have-
for calling that out multiple times now.
Sorry.
No, I appreciate
But I
that in all
told you, but I
seriousness.
didn't.
I appreciate it in all seriousness. Thank you.
So then I have, be it resolved, and I'll type this in the chat. OPT needs to invest in modernizing their routing system to enhance routes for better service and accountability. They need to.
Is that a new one?
Be it resolved. Yeah, a new one.
Okay, and you're gonna type that in the chat? Okay.
Yeah. And then on the back page, the third be it resolved, Omni is spelled with a Y. So
What did I do, Ron? I'm sorry.
yeah,
Where-
DOE must distribute Omni cards to all students on a bus route in case of bus failure. And then, the be it resolved that NYC DOE and bus companies must have working air conditioning and working heat on all buses. And I said, and provide, maintenance logs for all buses. There should be some public data about the bus inspections and maintenance.
Can you repeat that one more time?
I would also add regardless of the IEP, because many times they are trying to say they will not provide those things as AC and proper heating if it is not included in the IEP, forcing parents to have to go to the pediatrician and have the medical busing forms updated.
That's why we're putting it for every bus, not just for IEP students, for every bus route. Every bus has to have AC and heat.
And I think the law says that all of the special education buses are required to have AC and
Yes.
heating. Whether that's happening or not, it is in the law stating they have to have that.
That is local law, yes.
Right, so yeah, so this one, maybe it says provide public data on bus inspections and maintenance.
Okay, can you type up
Yeah.
be it resolved for that? Yes, please.
When they, maybe that needs to be put in a contract, because do we know if that is even in the contract? Because if a lot of these which a lot of these bus companies are for profits, they have to maintain their own buses. The city is not doing it. So unless it's not written in their contract, that they have to provide the data of how they maintain their stuff. So I think that being specific about that language, because if it's not in their contract, then how is DOE going to get the data unless they make it a part of what the requirement is? Because if it ain't in the contract, you ain't got to do it.
Yeah, I mean, there is federal law for busing, right? There is some Department of Transportation federal law that applies for buses in terms of minimal, I'll call it maintenance necessary, right? There's tire tread. You have to have a certain
but
depth of
that
tire tread,
language is
but
very generic.
yes, that's the
And
problem.
very convoluted. And it leaves a lot of room for interpretation. And I think if we're trying to make things better, we should be a little more specific.
Yep.
If I put together a contract, if we're asking them to do a new contract,
Yep.
make sure that be one of the requirements that they have to perform regular or provide regular data, whether it be quarterly, yearly, something should be in there saying that. Because the other thing too, when you do resolutions and DOE often read them, they only take what you write. So if you want something specific, you got to be specific. That would be my recommendation.
So then I came up with this, be it resolved that NYC DOE will conduct regular audits of bus maintenance and repairs and provide public data.
Great. All right, put it in the chat and I'll plop it in here. Thank you.
And then I have one last be it resolved. Be it resolved, DOE, OPT and bus companies will ensure that students remain on a bus no longer than the state recommended reasonable times of, and I don't have them off the top of my head, but it's like 90 minutes outside of borough and 60 minutes within borough. Because one of the big complaints we hear from parents is their kids are on a bus for like 2 or 3 hours one way. And there's no reason why a 4-year-old should be on a bus for 6 hours to get to home from a school that's 3 miles away.
Agreed. So yeah, Heather, one thing about one of your proposed amendments you put in the chat, it says, be it resolved, OPT will implement a plan to update parents on resolutions of complaints within a timely fashion. I think we need to define what a timely fashion is, because timely fashion is some DOE people is 7 to
Within
8 years.
72 hours, maybe?
Something like
That
that,
seem reasonable?
7 days, 72 hours,
7
whatever.
days.
I
think 7 days.
would rather have
Yeah.
within 7 days, 72 hours. What are you all comfortable with?
Celia says 5 days, and I agree with that. I
Within-
think that's good. That's a school week.
5 calendar days,
Five-
5 business days.
5 business days. Yeah.
Thank you. I'm going to plop that back in the chat, just so it's out there in its updated form. What else is?
Just a quick question. Is there data that actually reflects like the number of buses that are equipped or not equipped with the proper AC and heating? I just wonder if there is anything that reflects in the system that shows the number of buses that actually have working units and such.
Not public facing that I'm aware of. I'm sure internally DOE's got some patchwork thing, but I haven't seen anything publicly facing. I mean, you could probably foil it, but I have a feeling they probably don't have a master list, if I had to bet. I'm speculating.
Yeah, because I was going to say, the truth is there are very few busing companies in the state. I think Reliant was one, but that folded. I think that was through de Blasio.
Yeah, they got they got a good deal. Let's just say their owner was made quite wealthy from de Blasio. Yeah. But we don't have the language on the chat. I haven't seen the language on the chat. Did you? Okay. I'm trying to. Okay, I haven't got there yet then. Oh, yep, sorry, that was the very next one. I got Ron's and I'm scrolling up from the bottom. Sorry, I got yours is the very next one. Thank you. My apologies. You're faster than me, which is not a shock. I'm slow. All right, I got the chancellors in there now. Thank you. This is going to be a 75-page document by the time we're done, and that's good. So I see something from Heather where you say, where as the chancellor's regulations insert the section here is severely outdated, and I think we have chancellor's regulation A 801 from Amanda. So that's the one I'm going to plug in. Okay. Thank you, Amanda. All right, I'm going to plug that in.
Amanda is awesome. She knows where to find everything, and she's my go-to for data and looking for things.
All right, so I'm going to plug that. Alpha 801.
So in my audits of bus maintenance, I'm gonna also put follow up on emergency repairs in there.
Okay.
I'm putting it in the chat.
You can put in the chat so I can try to plug it in, please. All right. There's 7 new ones at the bottom. I'm going to start scrolling back from the bottom and see what I missed. Be it resolved, PEP needs review and update the chancellor's regulations. And we're going to have to read all this in just so everyone's aware. Rose, I'll need to have access to share screen. So I can, I'll need to share screen so I can. I have it on my computer open. So yeah, if you can just give me share screen access at some point. Doesn't need to be now, but at some point. Because then we'll have to read in all these amendments from a legal standpoint. And if there's a motion to vote, we'll have to vote on the amendments and then vote on the overall document. It's a 2-step vote process here.
I one. So I think if you are rewriting the contract or repeating contract, we have to consider the route bidding system in the contract.
So how?
No, because right now the bidding system for the route. So the rule, how you will assign the contract, that route to the certain company. Yeah, because right now they just give the contract to the company that offer the lowest bid price to the route, and then they can take away the route. That means you see a lot of traffic during the interborough because there's maybe more than 2 or 3 or more than many companies that run many routes during the same area because they offer the lowest price to bid a different route from different companies.
All right. Okay. So are there any more amendments to be typed in? Okay. Heather, you're typing. Maggie. Any other council member with amendments to propose that we put in here? If so, if you can just let me know when you're finished typing them and I'll plug them into the document and then we'll share the document and go through all the amendments that we have. And if that's the case, then we can vote on amendments and vote on a resolution if we so desire. Okay, I see. Be it resolved. Okay, wait. this is a new one, or is this to take out something? Okay. All right, all right, I'm plugging, Maggie, I'm plugging yours in, and then I'll,
Heather, when you get a chance, just review mine.
all right, and Heather, you plugged in. Joanne, you're working on one as well, is that right? Are you working on, okay, no, okay. Ron, Irene, Susie? Sinai, are you all working on any other amendments, or are we good from that standpoint?
Okay.
Okay. Okay. Yep,
Maybe that'll be,
okay,
let me get in.
Melissa has one too.
okay,
I'm gonna type it in the chat.
okay, thank you.
Once I get in
All right, guarding system, thank you.
I'm just gonna go ahead and read it out loud. The one that I put in so we could fix the language on that. Yeah, be it resolved, the NYC, DOE, and OPT must oversee and intervene after 3 times that bus company vendor vehicles, I don't know if you can call it vehicles, keep breaking down, wait. No longer utilizing those same vehicles and bus routes until they are fixed appropriately. So I want to fix that language, but I just don't have the, okay.
All right. All right, Ron, you got a new one in there, I see? That's a new one, right? Okay, I will plug that in. Thank you. And Melissa, you're typing away, is that right? Okay. Sorry, I just let you in late, and I apologize. My apologies on that.
Do we have this one though? Be it resolved, that OPT needs to invest in modernizing.
It's routing system?
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's in there, right?
I have that one.
Good.
Yep. And again, we're gonna read through everything if we have a motion to review proposed amendments.
You want to read it?
Okay, Melissa, help me out on which one you want to add it to, because I've added so many things, I have no
Yep.
idea where.
Oh, it may have even moved. So the be it resolved that NYC, DOE, and bus companies must share all complaint data except
Okay.
for personally identifiable information. That one,
Okay, so,
last page. That one. Yeah, the second one on the last, adding to it a sentence.
on the last page? Okay, be it resolved, okay, I gotta find that one, I'm sorry. Because that's like,
It should be one of the last
Resolved.
ones. Well, the original last.
yeah, we've added like 15 more amendments.
Yeah, we have.
Um,
Here, read what I put. Okay, so for Maggie's, I said, be it resolved, NYCDOE and OPT must oversee and intervene after a bus has broken down 3 times to ensure proper repair. These buses should be barred from servicing routes until repairs are certified and approved by NYCDOE. Does that make sense?
it will in a second.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's the paragraph. And you want, okay. Like that? Okay. And no, thank you. Okay, now I gotta go back to, this was the Maggie and Heather collab, is that right? Okay, let me.
Do you think that we should revisit and maybe not to table this, but should we bring it back to the legislative meeting or something?
Well, I mean, the issue is if you don't want it, for PEP, that's fine if we go back to, but the legislative is after PEP votes. So the issue is if you want to, if we're trying to influence PEP and the busing contracts, then we want to put it forth, we want to do something tonight. Maggie, what was the first version? Was this yours here?
I was just saying that Irene's been very quiet and asking her if she has anything she wants to add.
As you guys have all those detailed information when you add in.
You guys steal all the idea from her.
Okay, regular odds. Okay, it's right here. Yes, right here. This one I'm taking out. And then putting Heather's.
We're on the same page.
All right. I think we got everything here now, so I'm gonna try to share.
What was Melissa's final one?
Melissa, we plugged it in, where her proposed. So I'm gonna try to share screen. And here we go. All right, so we'll start at the top. Oh yeah, that I'm trying to fix.
I mean, I don't know, we'll see. We'll see how it sounds. But good job.
Does anyone want to be added as co-sponsors? Okay.
Dr. Sinai, Heather is a co-sponsor. Anybody else wants to be added to the reso for the co-sponsor?
Dr. Canton said she wants to, and I think.
Yes.
Ron, did you want to? Anybody can co-sponsor.
Anybody,
Yeah.
anybody, and everybody.
Is everybody want to be a co-sponsor that's here? Yes, yes, yes. Susie, do you want to be a co-sponsor? Okay, we'll come back. Irene, you want to be a co-sponsor? Yes, no? Do you want to be listed as a co-sponsor or no? Okay, okay. So I'm just gonna flag here, yes, 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 yes. I will add it in later. Maggie, Susie, are you gonna be a co-sponsor or no? Okay, we'll leave you off for now and you can let us know by the end of the night if you decide you want to become one. Okay. All right, so do we have a motion to review proposed amendments?
I make a motion to review the proposed amendments.
Is there a second?
A second.
Second.
Multiple seconds, all in favor? Opposed? Abstain? Okay. All right, so let's go through it. It's a lot of stuff here. I apologize. Anything that's in red, we do have to read out loud per state law. So, or anything that's struck out of the original one. So on the second paragraph, whereas the New York State Department of Education, NYC is added, the NYC DOE. That is an addition. So
Can you put OPT after Office of People Transportation, so then we can just use OPT through the rest of the document?
okay, whereas the New York State Department of Education, NYC DOE, and the Office of People Transportation, OPT, have not complied with Section 504 and IDEA, not the IDEA. Right? And IDEA, no, and IDEA, and I'm just going to put OPT in quotes since we did on NYC DOE. Okay, the next paragraph, no changes. Next paragraph, no changes. Next paragraph, whereas currently and historically it is documented that NYC DOE and the Office of Pupil Transportation, OPT, fails to provide adequate busing services to students with disabilities with specialized busing. All right, the rest is done. Now we get to the line at the top here. Be it resolved that NY State Legislature needs to vote on S1018/A8440 to allow EPP provisions in busing contracts. Yes.
We want them to vote yes on it, right? Not just to vote on it. They have to vote on it, right?
So the proposal would be to vote yes.
Right?
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay. So I'm going to read it again. Be it resolved that and I'm going to write out New York State. Okay. So be it resolved that the New York State Legislature needs to vote yes on S1018/A8440 to allow EPP provision in busing contracts. The next paragraph was struck out, which stated, be it resolved that the NYCPS shall create an independent office to ensure that parents/guardians authorized or entitled to receive reimbursements for transportation accommodations, such as car fare, receive this within no more than 30 days of submission, and that parents entitled to or authorized to receive direct funding for a car fare receive the same immediately. Okay, the next paragraph, there were a few changes, so I'll read the entire updated paragraph. Be resolved that the Office of Pupil Transportation, OPT, and NYC DOE ensures students with disabilities are guaranteed busing and transportation accommodations such as busing paraprofessionals for all city-funded after-school activities such as sport, after-school tutoring, and extracurricular clubs. Next paragraph is a complete addition. Be it resolved that the Office of Pupil Transportation, OPT, and NYC DOE ensure students with disabilities are guaranteed busing and transportation accommodations, such as busing paraprofessionals for all city-funded summer programs, including Summer Rising, Dream, and any other DOE-initiated program at school, including pickup after the educational program and after the enrichment program. Next paragraph. Be it resolved that the Office of Pupil Transportation, OPT, and NYC DOE ensures students with disabilities are guaranteed busing and transportation accommodations, such as busing paraprofessionals for all NYC DOE weekend programs, including Weekend Academy and any in-school tutoring or classes. Next paragraph has a small change, but be it resolved that NYC DOE, my apologies, I missed that. I will reread it in just a moment. Be it resolved that NYC DOE will ensure students with disabilities living in New York City attending private schools and/or state-approved non-public schools receive the same level of access to busing and transportation services as students attending NYC DOE schools. They're public schools. I mean, by law, they're public schools. Next paragraph, be it resolved that the NYC DOE provide consistent, clear communication to families of students with disabilities regarding any and all delays in assignments of busing routes, delays in arrival times at school, and any other busing related issues. Any other related busing issues. Next paragraph was struck out, which stated, be it resolved that long-term 5-year bus contracts that lack all the important EPP legislation undermine school bus workers' integrity and employee retention. Next paragraph was amended to state, be it resolved that NYC DOE and the Office of Pupil Transportation, OPT, fully implement all student IEP mandated transportation accommodations, including but not limited to curb-to-curb or door-to-door busing transportation, paraprofessionals, limited time travel, medical/nursing services, and specialized transportation assistant services in parentheses and then quotes porter services. Next is an addition, be it resolved that NYC DOE and bus companies must inform families within 24 hours if a route is merged. Next paragraph is new, be it resolved that NYC DOE and bus companies must share all complaint data except for personally identifiable data on NYC Open Data. Bus companies are required to have a specific call-in number for complaints to accurately record all incoming calls to a bus company. NYC DOE and OPT must ensure complaints are acknowledged, investigated, and resolved promptly and consistently. Next new paragraph, be it resolved that NYC DOE must distribute Omni cards to all students on a bus route in case of bus failure. Be it resolved that NYC DOE must provide rideshare information to all families with curb-to-curb service, including the rideshare phone number, website, and voucher code in case of bus failure. Be it resolved that NYC DOE and bus companies must have working air conditioning and working heat on all buses. Next paragraph, be it resolved that NYC DOE and OPT must evaluate the utilization of NYCS Bus as the sole provider of school busing in New York City. Next paragraph, be it resolved that the Board of Education of the City School District of New York, also known as the Panel of Education Policy or PEP, must not agree to a contract extension of more than 2 years, so the above can be implemented in a new contract. I actually want to put that at the very bottom. So we have the above is everything. So I apologize. I'm going to cut that and move it to the very bottom. Okay. Okay. All right. Be it resolved, the PEP needs to review and update the Chancellor's regulations on busing to reflect current busing policies, procedures, and contracts. Contacts. Pardon me. I can't read. Yes. Thank you. Okay. There you go. Next, be it resolved that NYCPS, we're renaming that NYC DOE. Be it resolved that NYC DOE and the Office of Pupil Transportation OPT shall publish monthly public reports on school bus service performance, including route assignments, delays, on-time arrival data, staffing shortages, and a number of unresolved cases affecting students with disabilities in order to ensure transparency and accountability, transparency and accountability. Next, be it resolved that NYC DOE utilize GPS bus data to determine if a bus is late and not rely on self-reported data. Failure to turn on GPS data on the bus must mean that the bus route did not happen, and thus payment for the route run must be clawed back or withheld. Daily bus arrival and departure times from the family-facing web portal. We need to change that. Daily bus arrival and departure times must be published on, yeah. So I'm going to read the entire paragraph again. I apologize. Be it resolved that the NYC DOE utilize GPS bus data to determine if a bus is late and not rely on self-reported data. Failure to turn on GPS data on a bus must mean that the bus route did not happen, and thus payment for the route must be clawed back or withheld. Daily bus arrival and departure times must be published on the family-facing web portal and included in NYC Open Data. Be it resolved that NYC DOE must publish data daily via app usage by route by run, AM, PM, after school, to a website, and also must be uploaded to NYC Open Data.
Can we just agree that like
Yes.
capitalizations that shouldn't be there can just be fixed? Thank you.
We'll talk about that, but yes. There's a lot of things that need to be fixed. Yes. Is it? Oh, it's capitalized all via. Got it. Okay. Next paragraph, be it resolved, OPT will implement a plan to update parents on resolutions of complaints within 5 business days. What's that?
Where it says via in that one, would it be more clear to just put the bus tracking app or via bus tracking app? Because I can also read it as a typo as via, like
Okay.
via the tracking app
Thank you.
usage.
All right. Thank you. So be it resolved that the NYC DOE must publish daily via, right? Bus tracking app usage by route, by run, AM, PM, after school to a website, and also must be uploaded to NYC Open Data. Next paragraph, be it resolved, OPT will implement a plan to update parents on resolutions of complaints within 5 business days. Next paragraph, be it resolved, the PEP needs to review and update the chancellor's regulations on busing to reflect current busing policies, procedures, and we already had that one earlier. That was a dupe. I'm going to take that out. Okay. Sorry. Okay. Next paragraph. Be it resolved, NYC, DOE, OPT, and bus companies will ensure that a student's time on the bus does not exceed the state recommended guidelines of 90 minutes outside of borough and 60 minutes within borough. Next paragraph. Be it resolved, NYC, DOE, and OPT must oversee and intervene after 3 times the bus company vendor vehicles keep breaking down, no longer utilizing those same vehicles and bus routes until they are fixed appropriately. Okay.
This is the one I retyped in the chat.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me take that out. Then it should be in there somewhere else. And if it's not, we'll add it in at the end. Okay. So I'm striking that out. Next paragraph, be it resolved, NYC, DOE, and OPT must oversee and intervene after a bus has broken. That's the same one, isn't it? No. This is the fixed one? Okay, sorry. Be it resolved, NYC, DOE, and OPT must oversee and intervene after a bus has broken down 3 times to ensure proper repair. These buses should be barred from serving routes until repairs are certified and approved by NYC, DOE. Next paragraph, be it resolved, OPT must invest in modernizing its routing system to enhance routes for better service and accountability. Next paragraph, be it resolved that OPT, Department of Education, DOE, and the Office of Pupil Transportation, OPT, shall reform the school bus contract bidding process so that contracts are not awarded solely on the basis of lowest cost and instead evaluate quality of service, student safety standards, workforce stability, and compliance with IEP mandated transportation as primary criteria in contract selection. Next paragraph, be it resolved that NYC DOE brings in parents and parent leaders into the new bus contract discussions as representatives, plural, at the table. Next paragraph, be it resolved that NYC DOE initiates new contracts with the above items included and rebids with a new RFP. And final paragraph, be it resolved that be it resolved that the Board of Education of the City School District of New York, also known as a Panel of Education Policy or PEP, must not agree to a contract extension of more than 2 years, so the above can be implemented into a new contract.
Just a quick question. In the contract, like through pages 31 to 40, it does address some of the issues like the AC and such like that. Do we need to still include that information? Because I think it said something like liquidated damages in the contract or penalties for violating standards on time, temperature control, etc. So I'm just wondering if that needs to be on there still, like if the.
For which needs to be on there, the very last paragraph?
So with the AC, that was already mentioned. They said something about requiring the bus companies to hold like parent town hall meetings and such. So that's why I just.
It's already in the contract, they don't do it. I mean, that's part of the problem is.
I mean, we could put a be it resolved that until a new contract is that the bus companies need to be held fully accountable to the contract that they have or something like that. But it's not really going to change anything. This is what we've been dealing with for 46 years. Yep.
So, I mean, Susie, if you want to add another whereas, we can, or be it resolved, we can certainly do that if you've got a proposal. I mean, when I've been told by senior leadership, there's some things that our DOE is overlooking that are in the contract today because they have a problem of enforcing it.
Yep.
I mean, that.
Yeah.
So it's tricky. So
I was concerned because I wasn't sure if there was any. Yeah, I just wasn't sure if it was gonna cause any like further delay for the contract approval.
Well, the idea is the last paragraph is saying that we're suggesting to the PEP that they not approve an extension of more than 2 years. Because we want them to do everything that we've talked about tonight, and that's not going to happen in 6 months. And we certainly don't want to take 5 years to get all these things done. And so a year and effectively a 2-year contract gives enough time to negotiate according to DOE legal. And it also gives enough time for state to do anything if the state chooses.
But also some of the things that we've already put are things that were formally asked. Some of those things when parents had asked, whether it was the air conditioning, whether it was the tracking and the GPS. So it's not like these are things that are new. So I think 2 years is a reasonable time because they should be doing these things anyway.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I wanted to say maybe on the last be it resolved that we reword it a little bit to say that and during the 2 years, instead of saying so the above can be implemented, we should say so that serious consideration and discussion of what a new contract would look like can take place or something to that effect. You know what I mean? So only approved 2 years, but in that 2 years, work needs to be done so that at the end of 2 years, we're not like, oh my gosh, we need to extend the contracts. Like during those 2 years, they should be working on the new contract.
All right, so,
I don't know how to word
all
that,
right,
but
so the development of a new contract. So a new contract with the above recommendations are developed
that services the needs of all.
and developed and negotiated.
Develop and negotiate a robust busing contract that protects the rights of our students with disabilities who utilize specialized busing, something like that. I don't know.
All right, so I'm gonna strike this out here. No, I appreciate our collaboration. Okay, so a new contract with the above recommendations are developed and negotiated with all parties. Including parents and parent leaders. What else do we want to add on there?
We can't hear, sorry.
I think it's important that it be very strongly worded that that needs to happen in the 2 years. So maybe something so that a robust contract can be presented at
With-
the 2 year,
Within the length
the 2 year,
Within-
the
well-
2 year, yeah. Because I feel like what's
of
happened a lot of
the,
times is they wait for 2 months before it's gonna expire and they just keep extending it because they haven't done any real work in that
I
time.
got,
Until we're in crisis mode.
so here's what I got, and you tell me what you think. Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the City School District of New York, also known as the Panel of Education Policy or PEP, must not agree to a contract extension of more than 2 years, so a new contract with the above recommendations are developed and negotiated with all parties, including parents and parent leaders, within the length of the finalized contract.
Does instant duplicate to the one that, the third one that you just go up?
This one, right?
But yeah, that one.
Yeah, I know. I think I think the idea was to try to reiterate that we want to make sure during that negotiation that we're not left out, we being parents or parent leaders. But you're right, there is a duplicative portion there. I'm absolutely.
I also want to ask, should it also include the student that who ride on the school bus so we can hear what they
Yes.
like what they
Okay.
don't,
Yeah.
right? How they
Yep.
feel because they are the one that who in the school bus.
Exactly, yep.
All right, so let's go up to that paragraph that says, be it resolved that NYC DOE brings in parent and parent leaders
I say
and
with students.
student leaders.
Lead with students.
So what's the-
Students, parents.
Student and parent lead, when you say student and parent leaders.
Yep.
So be it resolved that NYC DOE brings in student and parent leaders into, okay, so I'm going to reread that paragraph because it's a new amendment to the amendment of the amendment. Be it resolved that the NYC DOE brings in student and parent leaders into the new bus contract discussions as representatives at the table. Okay, and then back down here, including student and parent leaders. So the last paragraph would be it resolved that be it resolved that the Board of Education of the City School District of New York, also known as the Panel of Education Policy or PEP, must not agree to a contract extension of more than 2 years. So a new contract with the above recommendations are developed and negotiated with all parties, including student and parent leaders, within the length of the finalized contract.
The time of this 2-year extension should be utilized to develop and
The
negotiate
time
a new
of the extended
So it would say
contract
not agree to a contract extension
should be,
within 2 years.
must be, sorry, must be utilized to create the new contract with the above recommendations. I don't like the word recommendations, though. I mean, I almost want to say demands
Yeah.
or requirements.
Yep.
Requirements. Because recommendations is so soft. Yeah, yeah. Because these are requirements, and this is what our families and students have been demanding for literally decades and decades and decades, almost a half a century.
Ultimately, it's really on the DOE and us as a council to really hold them accountable, right? When it comes to anything that they are truly not following through with.
Sorry.
Even looking at their contract and it's, stressing the air conditioning on all mini bus station wagons and such. They really stress the mini buses.
Okay, by the
Which
way,
usually
we
impacts
have
the younger kids.
we have our CCHS representative here. Come to the table. Come on, friend. So Kim had been upstairs on the 3rd floor in the CCHS special meeting they had today. So welcome, Kim. Uh-oh. You've been indoctrinated after one meeting, huh? No. Yes. So welcome, Kim. So we're in the midst. Kim, I heard you had a thought or suggestion.
Yeah. Under the resolution where it was the New York State legislation to approve.
Trying to find it. I'm sorry.
Do you remember the page?
It may have been like on this, towards the top of the second or at the bottom of, maybe this page. I don't know what page you're on right now, but.
I don't know what page I'm on either. This is page 2.
It's on the very first.
Okay.
The New York State Legislature needs to vote on, the New York State the New York State Legislature needs to vote on S1018. Yeah.
Oh,
very
okay,
first page.
1018. Yep, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so be it resolved that the New York State Legislature needs to vote yes on S1018A 440.
And the governor needs to sign into law.
Oh, good, yeah.
Yes, thank you.
There's something missing.
Yep.
Or must sign into law.
Yes, thank you. Yes.
What I heard.
Governor Cuomo did actually, yes. All right, so I'm going to reread that paragraph. Be it resolved that the New York State Legislature needs to vote yes on S1018/A8440, and the governor must sign into law to allow EPP provisions in the busing contracts.
And
Okay,
technically EPP is employee protection provision, so.
yes.
Okay.
No, it's a duplicate.
One
So-
other recommendation to kind of tighten the language in the very last be it resolved.
Okay, so, all right, so I need to reread this in, so with the change. So I will in a second. I just need to reread this, otherwise it's not legal. Be it resolved that the New York State Legislature needs to vote yes on S 1018/A 8440, and the governor must sign into law to allow EPP in busing contracts. Okay, and then where are you, Heather? I apologize. All right, so next steps are going to be, we will vote on the, so just so everyone knows, the next thing we'll do is we'll ask for a motion to vote on the amendments and approve them, and then we would vote on the finalized resolution. So that would be the next two steps if the motions are put forth and approved.
And Heather, you're, oh,
All right, so what do you got, Heather? Talk to me. Okay, you're gonna have to, because I can't even see my.
Be it resolved that because I was typing the chat, I put the.
Where does this go? Is
it
this
would be the-
replacing
I
something?
reworked the last one, the
Right.
last be it resolved.
This is the very last, be it
Yeah.
resolved? Okay,
And in my version, I didn't type out Board of Ed because I just wanted to get it in the chat. So that just needs to be typed out again, but be it resolved that the NYC DOE and PEP must not agree to a contract extension of more than 2 years and concurrently use the 2 years to develop and negotiate a contract with the voices of students and parent leaders that includes the demands above and guarantees the rights of students with disabilities are no longer violated.
are we okay with that change and strike out this paragraph and go with that one? Everyone okay? All right, so I'm yanking that out. Okay, and we're gonna put this in. All right, so I will read it in one more time. We're striking out the prior last paragraph, replacing it with, be it resolved that the NYC DOE and PEP must not agree to a contract extension of more than 2 years and concurrently use the 2 years to develop and negotiate a contract with the voices of student and parent leaders that includes the demands above and guarantees the right of students with disabilities or SWDs are no longer violated. Okay.
yes.
All right, thank you for the collaboration, everybody. All right, so we are at a point now that we have a very robust amendment process that occurred. So I'm going to ask, is there a motion to approve the amended changes to the proposed resolution?
I make a motion to approve the amendments that were added and also to correct the capitalizations of several be it resolved and
Formatting.
and formatting.
Okay. There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a multiple seconds. Thank you. Okay, so all in favor of Rose? Wait, hold on. Rose? Roll call. Thank you.
Ready? We are voting on the amendments to the resolution, the changes and the corrections and alphabetical alpha whatever. Yeah, Dr. Sanai? Yes. Joanne?
Yes.
Heather?
Absolutely, yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Dr. Melissa?
Yes.
Ron?
Yes.
Maggie?
Absolutely, 100% yes.
Susie?
Yes.
Irene?
Yes.
Okay. Well, the motion to accept the amendments, now we have to have a vote on the actual resolution.
I make a motion to vote to pass the resolution on busing.
Rose.
What's the name of it called?
Rose, you have something? No, we have a motion. We have to have a second.
Second.
Irene seconds. Okay. All right. Rose, please.
Now we are voting on accepting the resolution. Dr. Sanat?
Yeah.
Joanne?
Yes.
Heather?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Dr. Melissa?
Yes.
Ron?
Yes.
Maggie?
Yes.
Susie?
Yeah.
And Irene?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. Thanks, John. All right, Rose, I will send you the update. I have to add in. Oh, Susie, were you going to be a co-sponsor? Irene, were you a co-sponsor? I'm sorry, I forgot. Okay, okay. And Irene, you were not a co-sponsor, or you were a co-sponsor?
Change my mind.
You're going to co-sponsor? Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you.
okay, great. Thank you, everybody. All right, I apologize for the lateness of that part of the discussion, but I think that was a really robust and a big deal for this council, so thank you all. We now go to public comment. Is there anyone out there still? I'm joking, but it's been a long night for all of you, and I really appreciate y'all staying online. Thank you. We can't table a business meeting, but we can run through it quickly. Public comment, anyone going once, going twice? Okay, is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn. Oh, nope, I think we do have a public comment. Raquel.
We do, oh,
She
okay.
says
I'm
here.
sorry. Raquel, did you want to speak? I'm sorry. Raquel, you're on mute.
Hi,
Hi.
how are you? Good night, everybody, or good evening, yes. Quickly, I just wanted to touch on one of the resolutions about the paras on the bus. I think Heather was saying something about a student having to have a para in order to be able to ride the bus.
Yep.
Yes, so how it works is if your child is assigned a para to ride the bus, if there is no para available, your child is not allowed on the bus. And so this is what happens a lot of times is our students can't get to school on the school bus because they don't have the para available. And so that's one of the complaints that we often field. And if you have if you're experiencing that, or if you have people in your community that brought you that concern, they absolutely need to reach out to the special education inbox at specialeducation@schools.nyc.gov because a para should be assigned to escort that child on the bus, but they will not let the child ride the bus if the para is not there. So if the para is sick and they don't have a backup, that child doesn't get to ride the bus that day.
I think that should be amended because this is why I requested for the matron to have some sort of medical training, even if it's just to assist in an emergency, because penalizing the child isn't right.
They're not
some
trained
students
for
don't
that.
have
That's not the role that they play on the bus, unfortunately.
yet.
The para often offers like one-to-one support for a child who has difficulty with their behavior on the bus. If it's a medical issue, they have a nurse assigned to them, and that nurse has a certification to provide
specific
those medical
emergencies, like for a
that the
type 1
patron
diabetic,
can't.
like a type 1 diabetic, or like a child with asthma, those sort of emergencies, not anything else beyond that, like, because it's immediate, it's life and death. So this is
It's
what
a
I mean.
liability, though. They would rather have that child not on the bus because they don't
Yeah.
have the medical service available than to have them on the bus and have something happen and not
Right.
have the appropriate staff there.
And then
It's
if the
just,
student
you
is
know,
only assigned a para in school, but not for a busing, they should be able to still ride because they're not there, like the para was assigned for the bus. It's only for school. So that wouldn't really cross over for that student. Am I saying it wrong?
yeah, unfortunately, that's not how they do things. And it's for the protection of the children and the busing staff in the schools.
Okay. It's just that hasn't been my experience. That's why I said something. But okay, I understand.
I mean, I think your concerns, it's true, and the problem is they need to make sure they have those staff available. That's where the problem lies. It's,
Yeah.
there's a million backup plans we can come up with suggestions for, but at the end of the day, the DOE is responsible for providing that staff. And when they
Yeah.
don't, it's their failure to that child.
I understand.
Thank you for your feedback.
Thank you.
Thank you for staying this late with us.
Of course, I'm all in. Thank you.
Have a great evening, Raquel. Thank you so much. All right, is there any other public comment? Oh, sorry, thank you. Thank you, Irene. Is there any other public comment? Okay, is there a motion to adjourn the calendar meeting?
I make a motion that we adjourn the calendar meeting.
Okay. Motion, is there a second to adjourn?
I second.
Thank you. All in favor of adjourning calendar meeting?
Bye.
Opposed, abstained, good. All right, let's start the business meeting. Calling the business meeting to order. Roll call, Rose, real quick.
Dr. Sinai? Joanne? Heather?
Here.
Mark?
Here.
Melissa?
Here.
Rob?
Here.
Maggie?
Here.
Susie?
Here.
Harry?
Here.
Okay, we're gonna go quick. Approval of minutes. The minutes were distributed. Did anyone have any changes to the minutes as they were distributed by Rose? If not, then we will accept them as presented. Okay.
What? Is there a typo?
In the September on the third sheet.
Okay.
If you circle it and give it to Rose,
Right.
she can fix it.
All right. So we will get that corrected and then accept the minutes as presented with the one amendment. Thank you for calling it out, Susie. Good
Thank you.
call. All right, Kim, you have a quick CCHS update?
Hello.
Oh.
For those who for those who don't know me, I was appointed on this as the CCHS. No, the CCSE appointee for the CCHS. I attended the first meeting after my appointment on October 22nd. During that meeting, there were a few resolutions that went through. The first resolution was related to the DOE providing digital training for children or learnings around how to be a smart digital citizen, basically, rather than just removing the cell phones or those mobile devices, as well as clarifying for teachers and principals that they can use DOE approved or Wi-Fi enabled devices in the classroom for classroom work, because I guess there were some schools where that was not obvious for some. They were really nervous about it. So those were a few things that also came up. One other thing, we had Senator Louie presented to the CCHS, and he is the head of the education committee in the Senate, in the state Senate. And there is a resolution, or there is a piece of legislation, a bill that he has sponsored, where it names the CCHS president to be to be part of the voting body of the PEP. And I just wanted to bring it to your attention, because if that's one citywide council that is going to be part of that voting body, it would be good to incorporate all citywide councils on it. So I just wanted to make you aware of that as well. So those were kind of the big highlights. We're also going through a bylaws review because we're making sure that everything is clarified in the bylaws. I am also looking at some of the things that you all are doing. So if you happen to have your bylaws, I would love to see them as a model for us, as well as we're updating. We're using some of the FACE template and other experiences that we've all had on different legislation bodies.
A copy tomorrow. Kim, thank you on that.
Yeah, so thank you. So this has been a great honor, actually, and kind of a fun journey. Oh, the other thing too, I'm so glad that you all did your busing resolution because I want to borrow it. If I could, to take it to the CCHS.
Yeah.
Yeah, because there's a couple of people who are interested in being co-sponsors on that. So,
Okay.
so thank you.
Thank
So
you.
once you have the final draft, please send it to me. I think we're meeting next week, so if I can get that as soon as possible, that'd be wonderful.
Cool, we can do that. All right, is there a face update? Sorry, any face update? I know you've been here forever. All right, no face update, great. Committee updates, anyone want to talk committees or we want to just push it to next month? Committee updates, you want to have committee updates now or we want to push?
I just want to remind people that our first busing committee meeting is next Monday. It's virtual meeting. Once Rose, she'll send out the invite to our listserv and then I'll pull the registration link and put it in the calendar so it syncs to the website. So you can just so check your email boxes for that. And then also you can go to the website to see if it's posted to register. I believe it starts at 7, right, Ron? 7? 7. Yeah, it's the Busing and Transportation Committee.
And I will send out notes for the legislative committee meeting we had earlier this week, so we don't spend more time here. Okay. Anyone else with committee updates?
Yes, okay, the health and wellness. So Miss Joanne Cummings and myself are going to be putting something together and we will have updates in terms of a date of when the meetings will take place. So that will be coming soon.
Thank you.
Oh, just really quickly, we will send out Rose will send out the notice. We're gonna have to send that info to Rose so she can send it out. Communications committee meeting is coming up this month, November 19th. But anyway, just be on the lookout for your emails. We'll send it out. Sorry. Thanks.
Okay. Co-president's report, I just want to quickly mention there's the transition fair this Saturday, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. at John Jay College. It's a really good one. They've got a lot of really good stuff set up. I'm actually really impressed. So I just want to give everyone a heads up. And then City Council has their education hearing November 17th. Chair Joseph, Ed Chair Joseph is looking to add a citywide educational leadership team. So another unpaid committee, whatever you want to call it. That's my general feeling as well. She also wants to require, so Chair Joseph wants to create another citywide educational leadership team. So we have a lot of them out there, but we need another one apparently. Chair Joseph of the Education Council, another education leadership team. We don't have enough. Yeah, Rita Joseph. Education leadership team. We have 1 million out there already. Yeah, so she wants to create another one. So just heads up on that. She also wants to require district leadership teams and school leadership teams to include a student representative, which is great. The problem I have is just think about retaliation. If that student doesn't do what the principal wants the SLT, that kid's not going to be living life at all. So this is SLT, and the principals already control most SLTs. That student disagrees at all, that's a road to not a good life for that student. I think that puts a kid in danger, honestly. So Rose has got her hand up. I know we're running late.
To go back, we have to schedule the Office of Food and Nutrition Services for presentation.
Oh, yes. Yep.
All right, so food and nutrition, we need to schedule it for what time frame? Because we've already got December and January lined up.
I'm sorry, they're scheduled for 20 minutes. Do you want to do it as part of one of those January, February workshops during that time?
Do we want it, I guess a question for the council, do you want it early and we just have a little bit longer presentation? We could do it for December presumably. Oh, I mean, probably with what's going on in the country with food, I'd rather have it as soon as we can. So Rose, see if we can get them in December, and I know we have OPT in December, but I think it's important to have both.
You want
Yeah,
both of those?
both of
presentations
them,
on the
and we'll
same
just
day? Okay.
we'll make a very abbreviated calendar, business meeting. But I think it's important. And then at the PEP coming up on December 17th, they are going to vote on updated Chancellor's Regulations D210. That was the one that the judge, federal judge, had basically said we can't enforce D210 in its state because it violated First Amendment clauses. And so
Nobody can hear you.
there is a new proposed D210 out there that will be voted on presumably on December 17th at PEP. So just so everyone's aware. And then just so everyone's aware, Dial, which is Office of Special Education, MLL, is hosting a meeting this Monday with CCEC presidents. That's the CEC presidents, just to kind of share what they've shared with us over the last couple of months, just so everyone else in the leadership of CECs is aware what's happening. Yeah.
So the CCSE was not, as far as I know, represented on that educational committee that met with Zoran Namdani. And I'm just concerned,
I was there.
but I didn't know that you were gonna be there. And I don't think the CCSE knew. And so did you go representing yourself or did you go representing CCSE? Because I don't think we ever voted on it or even knew we were invited.
I was invited at the last second. I did not represent CCSE because, as you said,
So we weren't represented. Even though your voice was at the table.
I was an individual. I could not represent because we had no, and there wasn't really advance notice per se of significance where we could have done anything. Because you have to have 72 hours to have a special meeting. It was not, there was less than 72 hours. So yes. So I did attend, I did listen, I did speak a bit about what issues have been brought up in this council and families have brought up, but I did as a individual, as I will speak at the city council hearing on November 17th, I will speak as an individual and not as a council member. So.
I think the only concern I have about those things is oftentimes they bring people to the circle who they feel most comfortable with. And as a council, it is imperative that that sort of cliquish behavior is sort of checked. And that even if they want to invite the presidents or the co-presidents to something, we as a council should be notified, right? That they're inviting, even if it's the last minute, send the email to Rose and make sure that we all get notice that you've been invited, even though we didn't have an opportunity to vote to send you on our behalf. I just feel it's very underhanded, and I think it just poses issues within a council because you don't get all the information. Not, you may be one of the few persons on the council who will not hold information, but I've sat on councils long enough to know how those conversations can be twisted, and though you may have came in the room representing yourself, you were called in the room not to represent yourself. You really were called in the room to represent us. Else they wouldn't have called you. They could have called anybody. So it's like, yeah, you get up and say, oh, I'm not representing CCSE, but the reason you were called to the table was because of the seat you sit in. And so I think we really need to have a better conversation with FACE or whoever gives these, usually it's FACE who gives these opportunity or the other elected officials that make sure that we're mindful. And even if you're called to the table, that we should be notified in advance. because it doesn't look good being notified after the fact.
Yeah, no, I apologize.
And-
So Face was not involved. This was, I got a call.
I'm not saying face, but I'm
Yeah.
just saying that's the leadership around this city, if that's the better
Yeah.
way to put it.
Fair enough, yeah.
And also, I just want to point out our bylaws allow the presidents to assign tasks to other council members. So you could send any of us to go.
I apologize for not speaking up. I knew about it just because I was invited by someone who knew me, not on that campaign, but someone else knew me from other things I have done around. So I'm not going to say it was because I was CCSE, it's because I was known. But that being said, I am known more so because of being on CCSE, to your
What
point.
I'm saying is,
Yeah.
at the end of the day, that may have been the case,
Mm.
right? We all are invited to meetings because of who we know, and we all gatekeep, because I have gatekeep, and everyone takes ownership of that. But if we want to make a more transparent and build cohesiveness as a new council, as leaders, we have to be mindful when we're being placed in a position that even though our intentions are in the right place, the impact lands differently. And one of the things I would like to see this term cycle that we did not see last term cycle was that you have to, even though you may be the person invited, as the president, you can send other members. And some members here are brand new to the council and don't have institutional knowledge, like myself and a few of the other members. And the only way they're going to better understand how the system runs and works, as leaders, you have to be willing to give them an opportunity to go to these meetings or be in those rooms so that they can have an opportunity to come back and share. Some of us will get in the rooms by other means, but I think it's important if we're going to build a better CCSE, we need to be conscious of that. I know our intentions are not there, but how the impact happens is what matters. My intentions to do a lot of things can be one thing, but my impact is what actually makes an effect. So I'm just saying, as a council, we just need to be more mindful of that, because there are new people here who don't know anything. And I think the only way they're gonna learn is that they're given opportunities or the conversation is brought. We can send a text or an email for mundane things. We can send a text or an email for important things. That's just a suggestion of mine.
Feedback acknowledged and appreciated. Thank you.
And I will just say, as a new member, I don't think that all of us new members don't have no knowledge of what is going on with the citywide councils, but no, it doesn't matter. I've only just stated one thing. I'm just stating that.
I just want to say that if I had not asked and brought it up at this meeting, would we have ever found out that you attended that? And spoke on behalf of students with disabilities? Like, and to me, I elected a president and I voted for a president that was going to consider the council and not just go and make decisions and talk and do things without the input from everyone at the table. That's not what my vision of the president is supposed to do. You're supposed to facilitate, not be the word of the council. So I just want to put that out there.
I appreciate the feedback.
President should facilitate the council, not make all the decisions and be the be all end all voice of us.
The one thing I want to say, I just said, the purpose of this term is to really bring people into the conversation. And so Susie, I want to say to you and directly speak to you, I didn't say that you as a council member knows everything, but there are council members here who have not sat on CCSE, who are not familiar with the issues. While you may have knowledge of things, the way those meetings work and stuff, you may not have knowledge of. So it's not personally towards you. It's just in general that gatekeeping is an issue among councils. So don't take it personal.
Rose is saying we got to get going. So
I want to say something before we go though. I said it in the beginning when you guys voted for us as a slate that I was for transparency and I was for all of that, what Sanai and Heather talked about. So I I can just say that Mark and I have been collaborating on, on pushing the council forward. I do want to just say that we do need all hands on deck as well. Each of us need to hold ourselves accountable. This is the first resolution that we as a council have developed. We want to see more because we really, really need it. We're seeing other councils or other education councils come up with a lot of resolutions. We need to collaborate with them as well. And so we look forward to like the committee work that's going to take place. We have the communications and outreach committee. We have the transportation committee. Let's work on the committees and the work on the committees. But I do agree that yeah, we don't want to go back to the silos and gatekeeping, and we want to keep it transparent, and we want to bring you guys to the table. I think that we're kind of on the same page on that. But I also want to say, like, we need all hands on deck, please, because it's Mark does a lot of work. I try to do a lot of work. You guys do a lot of work, but please, let's keep collaborating, and let's collaborate with the other councils as well.
Okay. And just quickly, the CCSE D75 member vacancy still exists. We thought we had a person face approved, and then face said, never mind, they're not a D75 parent. So we're back at, yes, don't understand, but that's where we are today. So we're still waiting for a member. Rose sent out the notice earlier. Do we have a motion to table the remainder of the business agenda?
I'll make a motion to table the rest of the business agenda.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor of tabling the rest of the agenda?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? All right, motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
December.
Yes. Okay, all in favor of adjourning? Aye. Opposed, abstain? Okay, thanks, everybody. Have a good night.